To open a restaurant today and to return the money, the investment, I just don't see how people do it with the cost today.
Woo!
That's
a whole other podcast, Lee. We don't have enough time for all that.
Let me tell
you. We're ready?
We're ready, yeah.
Welcome to the next episode of Pancom Podcast with me, your host, Mike Beltran, and our esteemed guest, the one and only Lee Schrager.
Michael, it's good to be here with you.
That's the only time that I get animated in the whole entire podcast. I think I've perfected that 100 plus episodes in. And then with our voice in the background, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Petey the dog. No, I'm just kidding. Petey's not here. It's Nicholas Jimenez, everyone.
Yeah, I was worried about having to deal with a wet dog on my way home.
Yeah, well, for sure. Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, so... anyone who knows kind of like you and I know that you and I have lots of things to talk about. But before we get into anything of note, I think it's very important for people to know your background, how you got to where you're at, your story. I mean, obviously, you've been in the Miami circuit for a long, long time. You know a lot of people, and you've done a lot of things. So just from, it doesn't need to be like the very, very beginning, but like from the beginning of when this became a thing for you, let us know.
Well, it depends upon what thing we're talking about. I assume the festivals, but I'm a chef by trade. I went to the Culinary Institute of America. I then graduated from there, came down here to go to school at Florida International University. At the same time I was going to FIU, I was working in Fort Lauderdale at a hotel called the Bahia Mar Hotel, right on the beach. And I was a room service manager, midnight shift, which meant that not only did I take the order, I cooked the order, and I served the order.
Yeah. The whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, I did everything. So, basically what happened from there is I was working as a room service manager. I would get in, at nighttime, probably around 11 o'clock, and watch what was going on in the hotel. The room service kitchen was shared with the banquet kitchen. And the banquet kitchen was always busy. It was a very social hotel, the Bahia Mar. And there were always lots of events going on and glamorous people and big galas and fundraisers. And I would watch that, and I kind of got enthralled with events. And the event department, catering department, was run by this older woman. She seemed older to me then. Of course, I'm probably older than her now. And she was always screaming and yelling and fighting with the chef and threatening to quit. And one night she actually quit, and I kind of watched the whole thing happen. And I remember the following, this was a Friday or Saturday night, and I remember that Monday morning going in and meeting the general manager of the hotel, who I'd never met because I was working at midnight. And his name was Manny Garcia, and I said, Mr. Garcia, I've been working here 8 months. I'm sure I can do Laverne Yeoman's job, because I didn't even know Laverne quit, is what he told me. But I said, she's quit, she's gone, and I said, I think I can do that job. And he said, well, what experience do you have? I said, well, nothing except watching it, and I think I, pretty much got it down. He said, well, long story short, he said, I'll give you a try for 6 months. I'm not raising your salary, whatever you're making now. And from there, it kind of blossomed. I was good at what I was doing, because not only, was I good at selling, but I had the food and beverage background. And that was really the beginning of my career. So I went from there, and I then...
Sorry to cut you off. How old were you at this time?
I was right out of school. I went to the CIA before my 17th birthday. I graduated, So I graduated the CIA before I was 20. So let's say I'm 21.
Right. So let me ask you, the CIA... Jeff, could you ask Tom for a cocktail? No, just one. Nick, do you want one?
I'll take one.
Yeah, anything that's cheap for him. Yeah.
This brown thing you got for me.
Yes. Yeah, thanks. Yes.
Cheap and brown, please.
I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah. What got you to the place that you wanted to go to culinary school at all?
Because I was a horrible student.
Same. Yeah,
horrible student. The only thing I liked to do was cook. When I was in school, high school, I went to Nova High School. I graduated in my third year there. I didn't become a senior, so I excelled, not because I was good, but because I took all these extra classes to get out. And I remember boys in those days had to go to woodshop class.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they have that anymore.
I think my high school has it again.
Really?
Yeah. They've brought back like trades.
Which is great.
They have a culinary program now that, like I've, kind of given them some guidance with and stuff. And I think they brought back like wood shop,
which is great.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I love my high school, so it's good to see them do those things.
So I hated wood shop. I was deathly afraid of the saw.
Bandsaw?
Yeah, and I remember saying to my mother, you got to get me out of this. You got to go tell them I can't do this. And I said, I want to be in home ec. And I remember my mother, went to the school and said, my son can't do it and he should be able to do home ec, and they didn't take boys and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But long story short, I did it. I excelled in it. The teacher told my parents that I had, some talent in the kitchen and that they should look into sending me to the Culinary Institute of America, which my parents had never heard of.
Hyde Park, right?
Hyde Park.
Yeah. That was the only one at that time.
The only one. It was only one. So this is late 70s. Mm-hmm. This is mid to late 70s at that point. And I loved the idea of going to the CIA because I was deathly afraid of taking my SATs. My older brother was incredibly smart and graduated, went to Cornell. And I was afraid about taking SATs and failing. So the thought of going to the culinary and not having to take an SAT was it for me. So I applied, got in, was on a work study program, and that was really the beginning of my career.
Yeah, I actually did a seminar at the CIA in California.
Greystone.
In December. It's a beautiful campus.
Beautiful campus, yeah.
It's very interesting for me, like me not being a huge proponent of like culinary school in general, to see how schools work.
Yeah.
That was like a really big, I went to like a 14-month program that no longer even exists. And that school was just like, it was massive. It was like an actual like college campus.
Somebody wrote to me over the weekend and she said, I don't know her, but she's been around and followed my career. And she said, she's having a career change and she wants to become a chef and have her own restaurant. Should she go to school? And I said, no. And I said, I'm not telling people that I don't think school is good. But I said, if you want to learn, I said, I think you work in a restaurant. Yeah. You work from the ground up. I said, there's no better experience. No school can teach you that. And that's what I would do.
Yeah, I think, because I get posed that question all the time. And it's like, it's that whole thing of like, well, I really like, my family loves my lasagna. And I'm like, well, that's cool, and that's great. So, well, I really want to be a chef. I'm like, are you sure? It's like, or I really want to work in a restaurant. And what I tell people all the time is like, before you go and you drop $50,000 a year on a school, right? Just go and you could make fucking nothing. You could make a minimum wage. Sure. It doesn't matter, but do it for 4 months before you get yourself $100,000 into debt. And that's really like the biggest thing. Now you go into some, not all schools are created equal. It's the same thing with any school in general. I'm sure that there's really good culinary schools out there that maybe are a little more in depth, but there's nothing like learning hands-on from someone that's been doing it for a long time, and then you're forced to do the same thing.
Absolutely. And what I didn't learn in school, I learned during my externship. I had probably, really one of the great externships, which really got me, into the catering and event planning. But I get emails all the time, people wanting to be chefs. And, what I'm afraid about is people's idea of a chef is a Bobby Flay and a Rachel Ray. Yeah. They want to be TV people.
Right.
And I think there's a big difference. And Bobby may not be a good example since he is a real chef.
Right. Well, he's got great restaurants.
He has great restaurants. He's a great chef.
Along with his kind of like commodity Bobby's Burger House restaurants, he's also got really good restaurants.
Bobby's a great chef. Listen, I'm not saying they're not all good cooks, but Bobby would consider himself a cook. But, I'm afraid that people want to become Bobby and Emerald or Guy, and that's the difference.
Thanks to our sponsor, Aganorsa Leaf Cigars.
Aganorsa Leaf is renowned throughout the world for its signature flavor that possesses all the great attributes of Nicaraguan terroir, along with classic Cuban aroma and flavor.
Aganorsa Leaf is pleased to announce a brand new edition of Guardian of the Farm, Cerberus, named after the mythical three-headed hound that stood watch at the gates of Hades. This exciting new Nicaraguan puro uses 100% Aganorsa leaf tobacco and is wrapped in Aganorsa's new Corojo 2012 cover leaf, which adds a level of complexity to the blend, adding light spice and a rich, smooth body to the blend.
When you smoke one of our world-class blends, you will experience the difference between ordinary tobacco and Aganorsa leaf. That's why we say our leaf is our strength. Learn more about Aganorsa Leaf and use their store locator and find a cigar shop near you that carries their products at www.aganorsaleaf.com.
The two of us smoke Aganorsa Leaf cigars often. We also offer them to a lot of our guests, like, for example, Dave Arvello, who every time I post a picture of a Cerberus mentions to me in my DMs or in a text how cool the band is, which it actually is a pretty slick-looking band. But also, I just want to note, little personal anecdote here, so it's not all totally straight-up red. I can say that Michael Beltran will absolutely not only vouch for the quality of Aganorsa cigars, but you met a Miami legend and handed him an Aganorsa cigar.
I did meet a Miami legend. I was smoking nearby Alonzo Mourning, and we had a conversation about cigars, and he handed me one of his, and I went inside. I bought this exact same cigar, and I handed Alonzo Mourning this Aganorsa cigar, and I said, try this. Thank me later.
I mean, if that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is. AganorsaLeaf.com. Thanks to our sponsor, The Barrel. This is a barrel-style cooker you've heard a good amount about on the podcast. I was able to use it a ton in my yard and loved it. It is a unique design, a conversation piece, and most importantly, at least to me, an easy-to-use cooker with loads of capacity for ribs, chicharrón, chicken, cheese, fish, burgers, and that is just a list of the stuff that I was cooking all at once in a cooker not much wider than I am, although I'm pretty wide these days. Mike, not long ago, we took some time during a podcast to cook with The Barrel in the garden behind Ariete, so tell listeners about all of that while I roll some footage of the cook for the video people.
Very intrigued by the design and how the actual chicken was going to come out. I would have loved to actually cook more than one thing in there, but the chicken came out delicious. It was very quick too.
And we only didn't cook more because it was just the two of us at that point.
Right.
So
anyways, I think about it too, like the home cook that's going to cook this, and maybe they have 4 people at a table, maybe they have 6. Like, you could cook a good amount of things, because we also cook some veg on there on the top grill, and then we cook the chicken underneath it. You know, the vegetables were delicious, and they cooked incredibly fast, and the chicken itself was delicious. We used a whole green circle bird, truss tied, and just hung that thing, and it was really, really good times.
Get all of the information that you need, and of course, buy your own barrel at barrelthebbq.com, barrelthebbq.com, and use promo code PANCON10, that's PANCON10, for $100 off.
$100
of your order when you buy the barrel.
$100.
$100.
You know, I saw a barrel.
The kids call it a C-note.
I saw the barrel at a place the other day.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You sent me a picture.
Yeah, and I was telling everyone around it that was looking at it, I said, don't buy it here. Buy it online.
Don't be a dummy.
And hit PANCON10, and you're going to save yourself $100. They said, what? I said, yeah, do it. And they were like,
be a sucker.
And then the kid just ran out.
Oh, man.
He just ran straight out of the store.
Peeled out in his car.
Yeah, straight to, yeah. He was on it.
BarrelTheBBQ.com, promo code PANCON10 for $100 off.
C-note. Introducing the newest line from Drew Estate Cigars. 20 Acre Farm is a complex, refined, and medium body cigar with a super oaky and cedary notes accompanied by a whisper of white pepper and a bright hint of citrus. Built at La Gran Fabrica, Drew Estate in Nicaragua, using a velvety, and I mean velvety, Ecuadorian Connecticut shade grown wrapper.
Under that wrapper is a sun-grown Habano binder and a filler blend of Nicaraguan tobaccos from Esteli and Jalapa in perfect balance with the opulent and majestic Florida sun-grown leaf. Florida sun-grown is also the name of the farm where that tobacco is lovingly grown and harvested by Jeff Borshowitz, who's the guy you see in this video playing behind us, on his pristine 20-acre plot of land near the central Florida town of Claremont. I have actually been to that farm, along with plenty of other cigar tobacco farms in Mexico, Central America, and the Dominican Republic. And what Jeff, who by the way is a very nice guy, there's actually a cigar box signed by Jeff hanging on my wall. What Jeff is doing there is super legit. So it's always cool to see products like his, which is the only premium cigar tobacco grown in Florida, in products from a company like Drew Estate.
Plus, 20 Acre Farm being a Drew Estate product means it's the creation of master blender and Pan con Podcast guest Willie Herrera. Support our guests and sponsors. Get it online. Ask your local cigar shop about 20 Acre Farm by Drew Estate. Learn more about Drew Estate and use their store locator to find a cigar shop near you that carries their products at drewestate.com.
That's right. I'm probably going to smoke one of those right now.
What are we waiting for? Well, Emerald's another example too, because Emerald was, he was a banger. I mean, Emerald in kitchens, like he
Absolutely.
Obviously, like me coming up under Norman for so long, I know all the Emerald stories, and like Emerald was like the guy that he was a troublemaker.
Yeah,
he was the one. He got kicked out of school, and then he went into kitchens and he did all the thing. It's just like I think the chef journey for everyone is very, very different. Oh, look at this angel. I'm talking about using that shocker.
That's the first time that's ever been used to describe me.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. And like and then also when you become like when you get into the industry, even if you decide that you want to cook, you could go into different facets of cooking. Nick's sister is a food scientist, right? She works for Red Baron. I always find that very interesting.
Yeah, it works for Schwan.
Schwan,
which
Schwan.
makes it makes she's in their product development kitchen in Salina, Kansas.
That's why everyone in Salina listens to us,
right?
And that's pretty much our entire audience.
That's where we have our biggest market share listeners per capita.
Per capita. Yeah. So, and then you could go into catering, you could go into small mom and pop places, you can go into chain restaurants. I think the world of food is very different for everybody, but you have to really understand the restaurant world to then say, I want to do this for the next 30 years.
And who would want to do it? I mean, I think it's the most thankless.
Psychos.
Yeah, no, people ask me all the time, do I want, the Baca restaurant? Do I, whatever? I'm like, I wouldn't want to do a restaurant again. I can't imagine under what terms I would do a restaurant. I owned 3 restaurants on South Beach. I had a club on South Beach.
Don't get ahead of yourself. We'll get there.
Yeah, but I would have no desire to do that today. And, Bobby used to say to me all the time, in 10 years, there'll be no restaurants left.
Oh, man.
And you know what? To open a restaurant today and to return the money, the investment, I just don't see how people do it with the cost today.
Woo!
That's
a whole other podcast, Lee. We don't have enough time for all that.
Let me tell you, you look at prices in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Listen, you're always going to have that 1% or the top 5% who are eating out regularly.
Yeah.
But the question is, where are your waiters going to live? Rents have gone up so drastically. Everything has gone up. Your waiters, your cooks, your dishwashers, your valet parker. I don't know where anyone's going to live anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the industry has changed a ton. I think that the economics of restaurants is going to change.
Yeah.
I think
it has to change.
The models of restaurants are going to change. Us as a company, we've entertained changing models over the last couple of years because, it's not something, we're not Danny Meyer.
Right.
So we can't change the thing overnight. Like Danny Meyer tried to,
right.
And Danny Meyer does.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And he's had failures and he's had some success. But, I mean, he's at the level that he can do stuff like that when you have, 45 Shake Shacks to, back you financially.
Which is why he's only doing Shake Shacks today.
Right.
You bring Danny a deal. I've spoken to him many times when people ask me, does Danny want to do a restaurant? He only wants to do a Shake Shack because it's the only way he's making money.
And I totally get it. I think, the way it shakes out, I mean, obviously we have several locations. The industry, I think, is still healthy. Do I think that the industry needs to be addressed and maybe reformulated? Sure.
I think it's broken.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fundamental ideology of a restaurant, is it broken? I mean, I don't know if it's broken, but it's the only thing that I know.
I don't think the idea of running a restaurant's broken. I think people's perception of a restaurant, people going to a restaurant on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, whatever night you're busy, and they see a busy restaurant, a packed bar, and people think, oh my God, they're making so much money.
I'm like, these people must be rich.
I'm like, no one's making money.
Yeah.
I said, at best, you're paying your bills.
Yeah.
The days of making big money in a restaurant, unless you're a sexy fish, but even in that case, I don't know.
Fish.
Yeah, that's another conversation. I don't know how to with that build out, whether the number is 30 million, 40 million, 47 million.
Can I tell you my thoughts? And this is totally just about these gigantic, because we don't specialize in, our biggest restaurant's 115 seats, right? And that to me is big. Everything for me, I like 60, 70. Obviously,
Sure.
the diner is like 115-ish, but it's a diner, so it's okay. You know, a lot of those deals are a lot of people getting in bed with a lot of people, and then you have a management company on top, and they're just making a vig on top, and that's all they give a fuck about.
Rich people want to invest in a restaurant because they want to go in.
Because they want to go and say that they own
They
shit.
want to take their girlfriend in and say, get a table and be able to sit at the bar for 4 hours and
Right.
then go to a table. I
All
get it.
6 of their girlfriends, they want to take
Yeah.
all of them with the Russian oligarchs and stuff over at Sexy Fish, and then they do, and then the company that manages it, they're just taking, you know, a cut off the top, and that, and when you're doing whatever $200,000 a week in sales and you're taking 10% off the top, then good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not,
But then when the investors are looking, it's like, why are these people making so much money? We're not making fucking
of
anything.
course, yeah.
That time, I think the time of that is going to come to an end eventually. Miami is the perfect market for that because everything here is smoke and mirrors, right?
Yeah.
Everything is like glitz and glamour and doesn't make any fucking sense. But the small mom and pop stuff, and even though we are a company, right, and we have kind of that model, we're still the owners of all of our restaurants. So it's like, you know, and we do smaller things. Like we're not necessarily like worried about having $100,000 weeks or $40,000 Fridays.
Right.
We just want to run a solid business. And I think that's why, like those things, like I look, Sexy Fish had to cost over $20 million to build. It's impossible for it to cost any less. The way that I look at it with all the stuff and then the mermaids and the things, like there's no way that thing costs less than $20 million.
I think if it costs $20 million, we're on the low side. I mean, the number out there is $35 million, but so let's say it's $28 million. It's a big number.
But then you have places like Mila. Like Mila builds that, then they absolutely fucking annihilate it. They pay everyone back in the first year, and now they're gonna do more things. There's some things that actually work, but there's a lot of shit that doesn't. You know,
When you're talking about Mila, you're talking about Mila, not Milos. Mila. On Lincoln Road.
The one on the second. I've never been. It's the one on the
It's
second
great.
floor.
Yeah.
Right, that one. You know, like they did very well. You know, we know some people that in their group and they're super happy and people like it and people go, but they spent a fuck ton of money on the build out.
Yeah.
But it hit.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's Lincoln Road.
Right. It's on the second floor or something, right?
It has a great view.
Right.
And, you know, other than Juvia, how many restaurants have a view?
Man, and Juvia's still there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I think so. I haven't heard if they're not there.
That's a good point. I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah.
I feel shitty for saying that. Nick, can you look it up?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I interesting. I don't know. I mean, you don't think of going there.
Well, I mean, it's on like the 5th floor of a parking lot.
Yeah, you don't know it. You know,
Right.
I think having a restaurant where you can't see it from the street is a mistake.
It also needs a lot of attention. It needs a lot of care for a restaurant like that to make it. But Mila, like, granted, Mila, I didn't hear a ton about. And then it opened and it was like wildfire, and then people like it, does well, and it's like cool.
I was there when it first opened. I haven't been there since. I went for brunch a few weeks ago, and it was great.
The research department says Juvia is open and will open again 5:30 on Wednesday.
Look at that. Look at that. Guys, support Juvia on the 5th floor of the Lincoln Road parking lot, which is a nice parking lot and built by some crazy cool architect, right?
Robert Winnick,
There you go.
1111. Yeah.
See there. All right, so after culinary school, then you went into
FIU, went to worked at the Bahia Mar, got transferred up here to the Omni Hotel.
Yeah.
Opened the Pavillon Hotel, which was now the Intercontinental Hotel.
Oh yeah, that's the one in the corner in downtown.
Yeah, the Old Marble. Yeah,
with
Chopin
now
Plaza.
with the lady dancing.
Exactly.
That's how I
with the
know
lady
it. It's
dancing.
the lady dancing.
Yeah, you're
hotel.
absolutely right. Then went to work for David Paul.
Mm-hmm.
David Paul was the president and CEO of Centrust Bank. Remember that the building downtown that changes color?
Yep.
So David hired me to be the EVP of Administrative Services, which meant I opened up the restaurant and the banquet space in the building, brought in, Trust House Forte to run it, and work with IMP in designing it. So that was really, it kind of took me to the next league of, in my career. David Paul was an incredible work experience.
At this point, you're like full-fledged into events and organizing and execution.
Yeah, food and beverage. I've always been food and beverage, but so from Centrust Bank, I went back to Intercontinental Hotels at that point. They asked me to come back, and they hired me as the the VP of Food and Beverage worldwide. So I went back to Intercontinental Hotels, opened up all their properties in Australia and in Paris and in London and Madrid, and stayed with them for 20 years.
Wow.
From there. So I actually left Intercontinental in 2000, the last day of 1999, and started with Southern Wine and Spirits in 2000.
Isn't that Y2K? Isn't that
It was Y2K.
That's Y2K.
Yeah, that was Y2K.
Wow, we made it through it too.
Yep.
We're still here.
Yeah.
22 years later.
Yeah. So when you think about my, I kind of, when I talk about my career, I kind of talk about Intercontinental for 22 years and Southern now for 22 years. So that's 44 years of my working career.
I mean, that's a chunk.
It's a chunk.
Yeah, it's a chunk. So Southern, what was that like in 2000?
2000. So when I turned 40 in 1999, I guess, I wrote a letter, may have been the last letter I ever wrote, to Wayne Chaplin, who I knew. He was the, I guess, president of the company at that time. And I said to Wayne, hey, I've been doing this for 20 years. I could probably stay here 20 more years, but I've had it. If you think there's a need for someone with my experience, let's get together. Wrote him a letter, totally forgot about it. Again, this is pre-iPhone, pre-computers, pre-cell phone.
Yeah.
Forgot about the letter. A few months later, I get a call from Wayne one day. He said, let's have breakfast. And we had breakfast actually in the lobby of the Intercontinental Hotel.
Breakfast is a strong move. People usually say lunch.
Yeah, no, we had breakfast.
Yeah,
yeah. I don't do lunches. We had breakfast, spoke for about an hour, talked about what I could do and what he thought I could do. And that was it. Didn't hear from him for, again, a few months.
Wow.
Get a phone call. Again, this is 2 or 3 months later.
Right.
And somebody who was running Florida for Southern Wine at the time asked me to meet him for lunch at the Delano. Mm-hmm. And we had lunch, and at the end of lunch, he's saying, well, when are you starting? I said, well, starting what? He says, well, Wayne says you're joining us. I said, we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about a real job or what I'm doing. He said, no, Wayne wants you to start. And that was really my beginning of my career with Southern.
Amazing.
So in Southern, in 2000, they were in 13 states. They had 6,000 employees, and they were the world's largest distributor of alcohol. 22 years later, they're in 44 states.
Yeah.
And they're still the largest. It's just, it's all relative.
Yeah, they're definitely the juggernaut of that industry for sure.
Yep.
And so, I don't know, 22 years, that's a lot to take in. What were some of the ups, downs, all arounds? I mean, that's a long career for anyone in one place. I mean, you did it in 2 places.
2 places, yeah.
So what was like the beginning of that to now?
I remember starting at Southern right after the new year in 2000, coming in, and I remember coming into the reception. She goes, who are you? And of course, there was no office, no desk. No one knew I was starting. There was no HR department at those days. And I remember thinking, what a mistake I made. And I was like shown to this little shoebox of an office. I'm like, what am I doing? And I remember the first weekend that I had off, because it was a Monday through Friday job. And I had off on a weekend. I didn't know what to do. And I remember thinking it was the biggest mistake of my life. I didn't have friends who didn't work in the hotel.
Right.
Every one of my friends was a banquet manager, an F&B director, a marketing director.
Opposite lives from a 9 to 5.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the first 3 months, I was so depressed.
Yeah.
Not having anything to do on a weekend.
Yeah.
I was so used to going in at 10 o'clock and going home and changing and coming back at nighttime for an event, and it was really different for me.
And getting out of work at 11.
And going out of you got out of work at 11 to 12 o'clock. And that's when your night started.
Yeah,
you went for drinks, you went to the Deuce, and those were different days.
The Deuce, I just bought a jacket from the Deuce.
Yeah, those are really different days.
Yeah, so, the Deuce is even different now than it was back then.
I really started the festival because I didn't know what I was doing at Southern. I had no real responsibility. They didn't say you're doing this, that, and I'm like, I better do something to justify, the spend from them to show them I can do something. And that's really how it happened.
So how long has the festival been running?
22 years.
Oh, so it's the whole 22 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm actually going on my 23rd year at Southern, so amazing. 20, yeah.
Were there any other ones in the country before that?
Sure, Aspen.
Oh, Aspen.
The Aspen Food and Wine Classic. And the real story is that I went to Aspen for a birthday gift. Friends took me. Do you know Stephen Reichland, the barbecue Bible guy? Stephen and his wife are great friends of mine, and they took me to Aspen for a birthday gift probably 24 years ago. And I remember leaving Aspen saying, wow, this is really incredible. And the only thing better than being in the mountains would be being on the beach.
Sure.
And that's really how the idea came. And I remember being on a plane, and again, pre-iPhones, and taking notes and writing down what I think South Beach could be, what Aspen could be on the beach.
How does that one differ than this one? Just because I've never been. So.
Well, imagine you've never been to South Beach.
Of course I have.
Aspen, imagine it's 1,000 people,
Uh-huh.
well, 1,000 rich people spending big money, you know, so it's much smaller and much more exclusive. Small numbers. It's a small community.
So you're talking about like the festivals?
The festival.
It's only 1,000 people?
1,000 people. They sell 1,000
That's
passes.
drastically different.
Yeah, so 1,000, you know, we sell 1,000 tickets to a mid-size event.
Right.
Yeah, so totally different. You know, people go to Aspen to be educated and have fun. People come to South Beach to have fun and have fun.
Right. No, yeah, that one I
Yeah,
know.
different, yeah.
Wow, what's the ticket to the Aspen one cost?
It's probably $3,500 today. So not incredible.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense if there's only 1,000 people.
35. But the issue is you have to get to Aspen, which is a pain in the neck.
I've never been.
Yeah, unless you have a private plane, you have to change in Denver.
Wow.
The flights are always delayed. And if the weather is bad, which is 8 out of 10 times, you then have to drive and rent a car.
Oh, wow.
And then the hotels are very expensive.
And they still do it.
Still do it.
40 years deep.
Yeah, 40 years deep, yeah.
Wow. So 22 years of the festival. Tell me what year one was like.
Small. Stephen Reichland, you know, we just spoke about him. He was the only celebrity that I knew at that time. So we created the barbecue event called Bubble Q for Stephen Reichland. So
Yeah, that still exists.
it still exists.
Yeah, it still exists.
It's been very, you know, the first year was 300 people at $75 a person.
Yeah.
And we thought it was amazing. You know, we didn't have tents. It was all out there. Beautiful weather, and Stephen brought in American Indians, and they did salmons on the beach all the way down the beach. And
Cool.
these of Dean Fearing and Bobby Flay, who was famous for barbecue at that
Dean
time.
Fearing. What
Yeah,
a legend.
Yeah, well, legend.
Legend.
Yeah, he
What
was
a
just here again, maybe last year at the festival.
I've never met him. I just
Yeah.
know like he's one of the
He's great.
American culinary like trailblazers.
Yeah, no, he's
that-
great. He's like that Jonathan Waxman era.
Right.
Yeah, my
Right.
favorite. You know,
Yeah.
that kind of whole.
So year one, small.
Small, maybe you know, we had 1,000 people, you know, and you know, it kind of, we knew we were onto something. We didn't know what we were onto. We never had a 5-year plan. We didn't have a marketing department. It was kind of really me out of my desk and a few friends of mine who helped build it. And you know, by year 2, the end of year 2, we doubled or tripled in size. So we're up to 1,500, 2,000 people, whatever it was. And we knew at that point, you know, that we were onto something and had to focus and, you know, bring in people to help us and grow it the right way.
Well, 20 years ago, Miami was also very different.
Well, Miami was different. You remember, you know, when you think about it, when we started the Best of the Best event, you know, I think 15 years ago, we started the Best of the Best event for one reason, because Burger Bash was so popular that we needed to figure out where to put these people.
Sure.
You know, all the people, you know, once Burger Bash was sold out, people didn't know what to do on a Friday night. That's why we created Best of the Best. In the old days of Best of the Best, we had to fly in the chefs, because other than a Hetty Goldsmith, a Mark Militello, a Norman Van Aken, a Chef Allen, those were our celebrity chefs.
Michelle.
Michelle, of course, absolutely Michelle. That, yeah, but Cindy Hudson. You know, so it used to be if we had 30 or 40 chefs, 30 of them were flown in, and 10 of them were local. Now you barely have to fly in anyone. I mean, the level of talent here today and the level of restaurants. I mean, look at where we are today, 22 years later, to where we, you know, were then.
Well, I mean, 20 years ago, again, like you said, you have like the Mango Gang
Right.
pretty much.
That's exactly. There were 2 restaurants on the beach. You ate at the Forge on 41st Street, or you ate at Joe's.
Right.
And there was nothing in between the 40 blocks.
Right.
You know, now you in between, you know, there must be 200 good restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely 200 restaurants.
Right.
I mean,
Maybe not good.
yeah, I think it's strong saying that 200
Yeah.
are good, but like
There's 200 restaurants to eat at on the beach.
For sure.
At least, and probably more. You know, a lot of mom and pop places, you know, that people don't, you know, people, you know, still think of the beach as, well, you know, today you think of the beach, you still think of Joe's, you still think
For
of,
sure.
You know, that's the most iconic restaurant. They're 100 years
Yeah,
old.
we have a location on the beach.
Yeah.
We have a bar on the beach, so we know like the trend and we know the area pretty well. And it's interesting because you have like some really great stuff,
Yeah.
and you have some really shitty stuff.
Well, people like me who live in the Gables now, you know, I live, you know, 2 minutes from here.
Yeah.
We used to go to, when I moved to the Gables 8 years ago, we used to go to the beach to eat. There was nothing here.
Right.
There was nothing here. The big restaurant, you know, I tell a story that when we moved to the Gables, the only restaurant was Hillstone. And I remember going to Hillstone the first week we moved here and not being able to get a table.
For sure, it's still kind of like that.
And I'm like, wait,
that.
I can go to any restaurant in the world and get in. I can't get into a Hillstone. I remember emailing the national accounts team at Southern saying, I need a hookup. I said, because 3 nights in a row I couldn't get in this place.
Yeah, I believe it.
And, and I still go there.
I mean, I talk about Houston's all the time. Like, I love them. I think that they're great, and I think that they do a great job. And,
consistently?
Yeah.
For a chain, the food is fantastic.
But that's it. Consistently for a chain, they nail it every time.
Yep.
The service is not quite personable or
they're robots.
Endearing, but it is robotically perfect.
No, it's robots.
Right.
It's like going to a Stepford Wife restaurant. But
you
know what? You can order that dip and the rotisserie chicken, where it's the artichoke dip or whatever. 8,000 calories. And the rotisserie chicken.
Well, that's why they changed the name, right?
That's why they changed that, because they had to put the calories. Once you have above 20 restaurants, you have to put calories on.
Right, and nobody wants to know how many calories are in the spinach dip. Or on the ribs.
No, the ribs are like 20,000 calories.
I know, but they're so fucking good.
It's like, what's that, Three Guys Burger at LaGuardia. I remember...
I've never been.
LaGuardia Airport.
Yeah.
So when you go to LaGuardia, they have like four places to eat, and all of a sudden they had to put the calories up there. So you go to Three Guys Burgers. 3 guys or 4 guys? What, 3 guys?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden the calories were there. So you stopped having the double, and you had a single. You stopped having large fries, and you had small. You didn't have the milkshake. And once they put those calories on.
Actually, when they implemented that rule or that law or whatever, I was in college, and I lived down the street from a Hardee's. And I lived in a house with 4 other football players, and Hardee's was like our thing. We'd just go down the street to Hardee's, and we would eat. And I remember, obviously, you weight train, you work out, just trying to be healthy. And fuck, man, I remember they had this big sign, and it had the burgers and stuff, and then it had the calories, and I was like, fuck.
That's the most disappointing, to look at calories when you're hungry.
I know, but they're delicious. I mean, those Hardee's burgers were delicious. Yeah. So I won't take it back for anything. So what were, in the 22 years, what were some of the peaks and what were some of the valleys of the festival?
I think the peaks were that we're here 22 years later.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think, people always say, what are you most proud of? I mean, I think just to be around 22 years later, and to, we by no means take any credit for South Florida becoming a culinary destination. We take credit for being here while it happened and recognizing some of the talent. And, during that festival time, people come in, they buy thousands of dollars worth of tickets, but they go out for dinner. So you're going to the Burger Bash or the best of the barbecue, and at 8:30 you're going to Carbone for dinner now on the beach or something like that. I never understood it. I don't get that. So we've kind of watched the rise of food and beverage. Unfortunately today everyone's an expert, everyone's a critic, everyone's a Yelp expert. So it's been interesting to watch the demographic.
You guys get Yelped too?
I'm sure. I don't.
Oh, yeah?
I've never,
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not on Yelp.
I know that Yelp has the Yelp events get Yelped by Yelpers.
Oh, so I'm sure we get Yelped.
I'm sure that SOBE gets Yelped by something.
I'm sure. Yeah, we get we get good and bad all the time. I think when you talk about being around 22 years later, I think when you talk about raising $37 million for student scholarships at Florida International University, when you talk about some of the highs, like, the King and Queen of Spain coming, or a tribute dinner honoring Alice Waters, presented by, Jamie Oliver, or, a lot of the talent honoring Charlie Trotter and having Ferran Adria here. Those are highlights for me. I think that, unlike Art Basel, which I think is, the biggest thing in the city, Art Basel existed before Miami, meaning they came from Basel. So they had that name. We had nothing. So, I view the festival as kind of our creation, my team and my creation. So, when you start from nothing, it's different. I wasn't an employee. I'm an employee, but I started it. So I view the festival, and I take it a lot more personal than someone working on another festival someplace else. It's my baby. It's my kid.
Sure.
I can gauge my life by the festival the same way people who have a kid, when your kid turned 5, what you were doing in your life, or when your kid was 13, what you were doing. I know what I was doing by the festival.
Yeah, this is my kid.
Right, I get it.
Yeah, this is my child. Now I have 8 of them.
Well,
so
that's right. Yeah.
It's I understand it's just like a little bit different because restaurants are different,
right?
But
sure.
Similar as it's everything that you have to deal with people is kind of like always similar, but they're all different in variation. So what were some of the valleys?
Oh, the early days when we used to get slammed, for long lines and running out of food and not enough seating and blah, blah, blah. We used to have a festival in the early days and get hundreds of texts after the festival or emails, whatever they were in those days, and complaining about something. How could we charge this price and run out of food? How can we do this and not have enough? What do you mean you're a wine and food festival and you ran out of wine? Or what do you mean there are no restrooms? Or we have to lose the tent? I mean, I gauge success. Somebody asked me the other day how I gauge success. At the end of a festival, if you don't get, if I get 3 complaint letters, that's a success for me.
Right.
The fact that we raise money is great. The fact that we've created this awareness for the hospitality school down here is great. But I think it's a fact that, we're at a destination that brings thousands of people to South Florida every year in February, and that we, spawn the sister festival in New York. I think that's how I gauge success.
Tell me a little about the one in New York, because that one I've actually never been to.
The festival in New York, it will be 15 years this year. We're always around the middle of October, right around Columbus Day. Where South Beach kind of profiles the best of the beach and things like that. New York does the piers and the West Side Highway, and we have signature events like a burger bash and like a taco event and 35 different dinners. And New York, it's really easy to get talent because in October is when cookbooks come out. So Adelenge is on tour, Mauro Calagreco is on tour. They're all launching books because October is prime cookbook month. So anyone who has a cookbook out wants to be there, and the publisher wants them there. So it's very easy to get talent.
Well, I mean, that industry has changed quite a bit too now.
Oh, interesting, though, and I had this conversation, with Random House. Cookbooks are probably one of the few books that are still selling well.
For sure, because, obviously I have stupid collection of cookbooks, all the way from old vintage ones that I probably shouldn't open to new ones and pre-order ones and ones that I find in random stores, because I think cooking is something that's a little more hands-on.
Sure.
So you want the information to be more hands-on. And I can't read off of a screen.
Right.
I don't know, can you do that, Nick? I know you're an intelligent person. You read things.
I prefer to read from paper, but because I end up reading on screen sometimes just because it's more convenient. It's easier to travel and read that way. But I like, when I can, there's a lot of Post-its and pens and highlighters all over the place and that kind of stuff.
You feel like the cookbook culture is still continuing to grow?
So I won't pretend to be as familiar as either of you, but the sense that I get, and I think that it also just kind of makes some sense in my head, is that it's probably impacted by the internet the same way that a lot of other stuff is. That a cookbook needs to be a much richer experience to pull somebody away from just Googling recipes.
Yeah. We talk. We've Nick and I have talked a lot about cookbooks, and some of my favorite cookbooks are the ones that are a little more involved, as in what's the life like, as opposed to just there's a series of recipes, which is, I appreciate the series of recipes for sure, but I think so I find the cookbooks to be interesting, especially in today's day. It's I get a lot more overseas cookbooks than I do local ones, just because I feel like that's a market that I know very little about.
Right. And I get a lot of cookbooks. People send them to me. Publishers send them to me. I don't use a recipe. I look at a recipe. So I'll kind of look at something, unless it's baking, which I'm a horrible baker.
Same.
And baking is very precise. So, if you're off by 1/10 of a teaspoon, it ruins your recipe.
That's why it's so
But
frustrating.
I'll normally, look at a recipe and say, oh, I can do that, and that's it. I'll make it never the same, I'm sure, but it's my version of it. I do not have the patience to measure things out. Quarter teaspoon, cups, you kind of gauge, I can look and tell you what 2 cups are or what a pint is, and a pinch of, salt.
Yeah, cooking is a little more of a feel, and baking is more of a science.
There's no question.
I can't bake fucking anything.
Yeah, no. I always say to Hetty Goldsmith, I could never do what she does.
I know.
She's
Hetty
so
is the best.
I hired Hetty. I brought her to Miami.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Yeah, I brought Hetty to Miami. When I was running Centrust, She applied to be a restaurant manager. This is 35 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So I brought her to Miami. Not only that, but I introduced her to her wife of probably 30 years.
Heidi.
Yeah, Heidi.
I mean, Heidi was a great influence on me in my
she's
career.
the best baker.
Yeah, she was. Yeah. I mean, we spent a lot of time in the kitchen together, and she was great.
Yeah. Have you been over to Aberdeen?
Yeah.
Yeah. She
Yeah,
did
it's
a great
amazing.
job.
Yeah, I mean, like our bar is like 2 blocks.
Oh, you're
from
right
there.
there. Yeah.
So whenever I go for like we do tastings during the day or meetings during the day, I'll go there for lunch. And also Sam, I have a lot of respect for him too. And
The nicest. He is
he's
one of the
he's
nicest
incredible.
chefs in town. Yeah.
I loved like the original My Ceviche,
Sure.
and I love this, which so.
Yeah, he's one of the nicest people in town.
For sure, and super talented.
Yeah.
You know, I think
hardworking. He's great.
I think that little corner has got some of the better food in that area because.
So what's there?
Planta is there.
I've never been.
Yeah, that one is pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, not like it's not really my bag food wise, but you know.
Nor mine. I've never been to the one in the Grove either.
Well, there you're not missing much. And then they're right next to there, and then they have this weird little like Mediterranean place.
Well, they have the like Fuego de Chao too, don't they have that steak?
Well, then you have that whole strip
Yeah.
that has what is it, Biblos, right? Biblos or Milos?
Milos at the end.
Milos.
The block, yeah.
There's like 4 restaurants there, and they're all pretty solid. And then you have Stubborn Seed in the corner, and then you have our bar, which is a Scapegoat that's like right in the middle of that
Oh, is
block.
Scapegoat you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
And then Prime Fish,
Prime Fish is on right.
and then
Prime Fish is where Nemo used to be,
right,
which is where Hetty got her start.
right,
Yeah.
with Frank Giannetti, right? Frank Giannetti and Michael.
Wow.
Yeah, I worked for Frank.
Frank, God, I haven't heard that name. Right.
Yeah, Frank hired me before Norman hired me, and I worked for Frank for I don't know, like 4 months. Then Norman hired me.
Yeah.
So that was Frank was.
I mean, that Sunday brunch at Nemo's was the best brunch in town.
Yeah, I mean that place has some serious history behind it, Nemo.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
And then now you have the newcomers of the Carbones of the world that are down the street.
Yeah, and Grutman, of course, which is I'm curious as a real chef and restaurateur, your thoughts on those people coming to town.
Oh, I mean the same as everyone else. I mean, I guess like I don't know. I think Carbone seems to do like okay stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I think that like they're growing real fast
Yeah.
and a lot. And I think it's going to be real tough to handle. But if they feel like they can, then
Well, it'll be interesting. Let's see, one summer. One summer like we're about to have.
like a real
Like a real summer?
Yeah.
I
summer-
don't wish it on anybody, but I'm going to be very curious.
Well, you got to know how to weather it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like newcomers really understand that.
They've heard about it, but seeing is believing.
Yeah. Well, they're about to feel it.
Yeah. When you get into the end of July and through Labor Day, right? Until October, it's a different animal.
Even October is our 3rd worst month.
Really?
Yeah, and then we don't see like Thanksgiving is like we're back.
Oh, it's not till Thanksgiving. I always say it's mid Columbus Day weekend.
Yeah, I mean the Grove is interesting. Maybe this year because the Grove has got
people
more
are back
stuff.
to school. When the kids are in school,
Right.
you start to pick up.
Well, I also feel like the Grove has gone through like a big change, so I feel like maybe may come a little earlier than before. Because remember, like for the last 6 years that we've been here, there hasn't been fucking anything.
No,
here.
you were the pioneer here.
No, I don't know.
Well,
quite that. I mean, like Giorgio opened up Glass and Vine here 6 years ago. Also, I know he's not there anymore.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, before you and Giorgio opened, what was here?
Matt Kushner, Locale.
Oh, yeah, I've never been.
Yeah, I mean, he's,
next to me at work, I eat at the Kush next to my office in Wynwood.
Oh yeah. Well, think about like that. Locale has been there, I think, for 11 years.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously Matt's a good friend, and like, that was like
nice people, hardworking, nice people. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's solid and it's fun and it's a good time, and I think Matt really cares about like what he does. So I think that Locale, I would say that they were a huge trailblazer in this part of the city. And, we came in doing fancier shit, a few years later. And, just like the Glasses and Vines of the world and what Giorgio was doing before. And I know he's not there anymore, but still. So what are, let's talk about, how do you feel your relationship with the city is?
Which city?
This one.
Miami or Miami Beach?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at them all as one, but I guess you would say Miami Beach first.
Right. Best partners you can have. They've been incredibly supportive. I always say that, we get 100 calls a year or emails or letters, people wanting to start a wine and food festival. And I say, people want to know what's the most important thing? Partners.
Sure.
The city of Miami Beach wanted us. They still want us. They see the value of it, and they still support it. I think having the right partners is the most important thing.
What about the city overall?
Good.
You think?
Yeah. The mayors have always been supportive. The commissioners have always been supportive. We don't get funding from the city of Miami itself, where we do from the beach.
No, you make them money.
Well, listen, we bring them business, which is making them money.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the core of Miami, which is like the food and beverage community?
What's the question?
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel like your relationship is with them?
It depends who you're asking. I have good friends in the business, and I have people who I'm not friendly with. I think like anything, whether I was a doctor or whether you own the collection, people like you or don't like you, and you stop worrying about people liking or don't liking you, as you get older. It's not as important. I take what I do very personally, and we talked about creating, and creating is important. So many people think that I've gotten rich working off the festival, that I'm compensated or that I'm paid. I'm not paid a penny. I am not paid 1 penny for producing the South Beach and New York Wine and Food Festival. I handle communications for Southern Wine and Spirits. I'm very well compensated, and the festival is one of my jobs. If we make $3 million a year, I get a nice thank you, meaning thank you. And if we lost $1 million last year during COVID or 2 years ago, I'm not penalized. I didn't get rich. My pockets are not lined with gold where people think, oh, he must make money. I don't. I'm just like, I don't know who to compare it to, but I'm just like a Sam Keller from Art Basel, who was an employee. When you love what you do and do what you love, and you're committed to something, and you only want to do what you think is right, and it may not always be right, you take it very personally.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm not as offended today as I was 10 years ago, about negative things or, listen, I understand that not everyone likes me or likes what I do, but listen, it's my job, and I don't like, I never quite, I'm not in that chef community, but I have a lot of chef friends. I don't socialize with chefs. I mean, I'm not for no reason.
Right.
It's just not, it's not, I'm 60 years old. I don't do, I don't do what I used to do. But I'm out. I support them. During COVID we tried, and I have to say that was something that you really brought to my attention. And as soon as you did, and we're talking about, I think you reaching out to me, or maybe it was Larry Carino who said.
We talked.
Yeah, I remember you and I spoke. I don't know.
We did.
I think Larry told me to call you, or
I don't know. Maybe
I don't know how it started.
Maybe
I don't know how it started.
Larry is a great friend of mine. So
Larry's the only publicist we've ever had at the festival.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good move by you.
20 years of South Beach, or 22 years, Brusman and Carino is the only agency I've ever used.
Yeah.
New York City, I've changed 7 times.
Oh, no shit.
Yes, at least 7 times, maybe more.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I posed the question, and obviously, and I will say, I think equally so, I don't get, I think being in this for 6 years, which is not quite 22,
right.
I get offended by very little, and I understand that there's lots of critiques on the shit that I do or the things that I say or whatever it is, but I think that in reality, the things that I do and say are because not only do I very much love, my child,
right.
but I love this city and this community very much. And I would say that, and we did talk during COVID, and I do think that you guys did a really solid job in supporting the community, right? But I think furthermore on top of that, there's obviously a disconnect from, and I always use football as a terminology, just what I understand, from my side of the ball and your side of the ball, right? And I think that the biggest issue for me always is you got to think about it. I've been cooking for 17 years, right? So you've been doing the festival longer than I've been cooking, right? So for me, my entire career, it's always been Lee Schrager and Lee Schrager and Lee. So, okay, I mean, that's cool. He's and I told you this on the phone during COVID. You have the opportunity and you can be a champion for our industry, right? In a lot of ways, and for our city and our food and beverage community and the whole nine, right? Whether you want that or not, that's totally separate. And that's totally not the point. For me, the point is, like, we look to you guys to support us as much as I feel like we've supported you, right?
When you say you, are you saying Southern Wine or are you saying the festival?
The festival.
Okay.
I have like
I just want to. I know you
no, because like
you have your own issues.
Well,
with
let's
Southern.
clarify that.
Yeah.
Like Southern for me is someone that I pay money to for booze.
Right.
Period. That's it. Like they don't provide anything else
Right.
for me other than a service that I need.
Right.
So I can drink it.
Right.
That's pretty much it. So for me, it's the festival. Southern, I'll never be able to change. That's totally different. But like I'm talking about the festival specifically. When I look at like the fact that this is something that it's in our backyard, it's something that, you know, it has a huge opportunity to prop up the community. And I'll tell you this because other people, I don't know if they don't have the time, they don't care to, or maybe they're just scared to.
Yeah.
Don't fucking tell you.
Absolutely.
They don't sit there and say, you know what, this needs to be rectified, this needs to be talked about, this needs to be figured out. Because right now, it's very one-sided, right? And for me, and shit, I mean, I think we've been at this now for like 3.5 years, 4 years probably, of a hardcore disagreement. And I can tell you that the core of the disagreement for me always comes to one simple fact. Me, I'm also a business owner.
Right.
And for me, I have a responsibility to 157 employees to make sure that they get fed, to make sure that they get their paychecks, to make sure that there's power in the building, make sure that we can serve people every single day, right? So when I look at like the opportunity to do an event, you know, is there a proper return on investment? Does the risk equal the reward, right? And then equally, let's say that the risk doesn't equal the reward, quite say financially. Is it going to put us in a place that I think is going to benefit the brand, right? I would tell you that you guys fall short there.
Yeah.
And from several reasons. And I'll just tell you, like, you made the joke earlier, like, have you been to SOBE?
Yeah.
I did SOBE for 11 years.
Yeah.
Pretty much my whole career. Right.
Working for people.
And then 3 times on my own.
Right.
Working for people, it's one thing,
right?
Because you're like, yeah, it's cool. We get to go.
We get to get out of the kitchen.
We don't need to. We don't need to go to work today.
Yeah,
We're gonna. There's gonna be a beer underneath the table. We're gonna have a good time. You know, we may be fighting it out for some water, but we have beer, so it's cool. Like stuff like that. But then when you become the owner, right, and then there's like a mountain of things you have to deal with. Then now you have to say, okay, our stipend for this event is $500. Okay,
Nothing.
I have to feed 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, I need to take, let's say, 3 employees.
Right.
Then even before the day of the event, I need to spend a day prepping.
Right.
Then we need to package, we need to ship, we need to transport the whole thing. All of that included for $500. Now, me as a business person, I also know you can't pay everyone $5,000.
Right.
I know you can't pay everyone $10,000. I know you can't pay everyone $1,500. Yeah. But I also don't think that it's quite enough for me to say we're being put up into a place that I say, okay, like the marketing here is actually going to make sense for me to do this, right? And I think that this is where you guys, honestly, I mean, don't say hurt yourselves, but like hurt your relationship with a lot of people in the industry, right? Because me, for sure, I voiced my opinions. Right. I don't like things. Right. I tell you. I don't agree with things. I tell you. And I don't care. And it's not like to me, and I've told you this before, it's not a personal attack. It's like the system needs to be changed. Just like you said that the restaurant system needs to be changed, the system of the festival should be addressed and needs to be changed. And if no one says it,
we don't know.
We don't know.
If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you always got.
But let me tell you the other side of it. The other side of it too is like, and you probably don't see it this way, but I know it.
Yeah.
If we don't do it, we're left out. If we don't do it, they're not going to show us any more love. If we don't do it, then we're not part of the cool kids that are doing it. And me personally, like, and you know this from the last event that we tried to do together, I don't give 3 fucks about being one of the cool kids to do an event. I do not care. I can care less. Yeah. For me, what matters is like, are we doing what it takes for us to be okay?
Right.
That's all I care about.
And that's the most important thing.
Right. No, I mean, I know.
But my big issue is you have a publicist. We just spoke about Larry Carino.
Yeah.
He has never once said to me what your beef is.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that's fine. But it's also a conflict of interest, though.
Well, listen.
For him. I mean, he's also your publicist, too. He doesn't want to spurn that relationship either because you probably pay him a lot more than I do.
Questionable, but, you know, he's not. Yeah.
I hope not.
But he's, every year for the last 6 years, we do a PR roundtable. It takes place, I don't know, probably now, around July, August. Yeah. We invite it can't be August, I'm not here, July. We invite every publicist in town. We must get 40 or 50 people show up. Some agencies send 2 or 3 people. We started it 6 or 7 years ago just to get the feedback from the publicists. Mm-hmm. And I remember every year I said, listen, I'll never make everyone happy. I'm never going to be everyone's friend. Tell me what we need to do.
Sure.
And we've gotten great feedback, and we have changed a lot of things. But listen, Larry sits at those meetings or has people at the meetings. He's never voiced it up. I mean, we started compensating. It's bullshit, 500 or 750. I get it. It's almost insulting. But if you paid every chef who participated or every restaurant $2,500, yes, it would mean that the festival meeting at the university would make less money. It's probably the right thing to do. I'm not disagreeing with you. Mm. You also open doors that can never get shut.
For sure.
With like that. Which is why if you did a Burger Bash event, the meat's donated.
Right.
Martin's donating their potato or whatever they are, rolls. Heinz is donating their ketchup. Yes, it's labor. It's leaving your place, leaving your business. In my mind, the value is, or why you should be doing the festival, is you're a restaurant owner in town with multiple restaurants.
Yep.
It supports the hospitality school that you're going to or using, hopefully, students from.
Sure.
And that it helped put South Florida, on the map as a great culinary destination.
Which I don't disagree with, but you have to look at the other side of that, right? So like if you're only paying the restaurant $500, and this is, I'm exaggerating the example, but is the restaurant going to be there if they're okay with only taking $500 to do an event for 2,000 people tomorrow so that employee can then work there?
Well,
that means that they're making bad decisions from day one.
Right. It could very well. So here's a great example. Every year now, for the last 3 or 4 years that we've paid money, I don't know what we pay. I think it's $750 or $1,000 now.
Last time I did it, it was $500.
How was that? 4 years ago?
I would give or take.
It's $750 or $1,000 now. Not changing your life, not changing the festival's life, but that was at the end of a festival. Let's say we're reimbursed that if we had 278 chefs participating, each entitled to get some compensation. What percent of the people do you think bill us back? Because you have to send an invoice.
I totally understand that.
What percent?
Yeah, no, I get that. Follow through with restaurants is not the best.
What percent?
I would say 30%.
Higher, about 45. Yeah, 40%.
Still, 40% is very low.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing. Every year we put in the budget, whatever the number is, we estimate, that it's going to be $250,000 or $300,000 in billbacks. Every year we put that number in there. It's never even 50% of that money. Yeah, it's never even 50% of the money. So here it's important.
Yeah.
But the majority of people, and the ones who are doing it, are not the Ariettes, and it's not the Michael's Genuine, and it's not, Giorgio. It's the mom and pop, the canteen is where it really makes a difference. So
for sure.
No one should do the festival who doesn't want to do it. If you don't think that it brought value to the city, if you don't think that supporting education, culinary education, I'm a scholarship student. I grew up dirt poor, and I went to school and work study programs, and I survived off the kindness of others. And I'll tell you, when I can give back personally, I give back personally. I think that anyone who is in a position to support the festival and to give back at one event, whether it's cooking a dinner at a restaurant where you're doing one course, should be doing it. Because everyone can leave their restaurant for 3.5 hours. No one's going to miss anybody, even a Danielle or a Jean-Georges or a Thomas Keller or an Eric Repair. They all can take the time. When I think of people who I have beefs with in the city, and a lot more. I mean, you sit and have drinks with them. I don't. And you're right. They're probably nice to me and, probably talk shit about me, but
that's a fact.
Yeah, I'm no question about it. Right. No question about it. But they don't speak up.
Yeah, and listen. If anything, I 100% agree with you, because people always tell me, it's like, well, you're just so loud and this and that. I'm like, yeah. I mean, if we don't fucking say anything, then nothing's ever going to fucking change.
Absolutely. It's as much your responsibility, Michael, as it is mine.
For sure.
But if you're not going to speak up, when you told me during COVID, what I should be doing.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did I not think of that? I remember the date. It was Saturday, March 13th.
Yeah, I was sitting outside of Vice City.
And I remember where I was, and I remember having that call with the chefs and saying, I need to do something. How I didn't think about it, but this is not like we were months into it. We were days into it. And I remember saying to you, what's the most important thing to you? What is the most important, Bill? And you said your employees.
For sure.
And we went into action right away. Not because you told me, but because it was the right thing to do.
Agreed.
And I don't know anybody or any group of people who raised as much money as we did. Forget the bake sales that we did. It's the loans that we did. It's the grants that we got from the city. It's the money that we raised from that auction with Dave Portnoy and Guy Fieri. Mm-hmm. We did everything that we should have been doing.
For sure.
Do I expect a thank you? No. But do I think that somebody who we supported over that period, be it you or whoever else it was, I think that if I listened to you, and it was important enough for you to come to me and fill out a form to get some type of grant for us for $20-something thousand, do I think that the following year you could have done the festival? Yes. That's me.
Yeah,
if I was in your shoes, I would have said, I'm never going to do this fucking festival again, but I do think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, well, I would tell you this.
Yeah.
I did it for 10 years. I mean, you have to look at it from my perspective, and I've said this analogy to Nick a couple times, just talking about this instance. Yeah. So I think that one stings you the most because, you guys helped us out, and I told you 100%. I thanked you, and I was like, that's great, but I also told you I would give you the money back.
We don't want the money back.
And I understand that, but I also told you that I would give you the money back.
I don't remember that, but if you say it, I believe it. But
my whole point is, I gave you guys 10 years. We needed, and it's essentially like your friend that's been your friend for 10 years,
right,
has fallen off the boat. The boat, like he is in the water.
Right.
He has no idea how to swim.
Right.
And because he said he didn't like something about you, instead of you putting a hand out to bring him back onto the boat, you were like, fuck you, you don't agree with me. That's essentially what you're telling me, though.
No.
It is.
I have said to Larry Carino a dozen times, and we can call him right now, what's wrong with Michael Beltran? How can I fix it?
Yeah, but we're here trying to fix it.
But national radio.
This is not national. That is a strong statement.
That's listen, there's another chef in town. And again, I'm not interested who doesn't like me, Michael.
Sure.
At this point in my career, I'm not running for, prom queen.
To cut you off,
yeah.
I've also said, I don't have an issue with you.
Yeah.
This is an issue that needs to be figured out.
That's
personally,
me.
But
that's me.
But that's you taking it personally.
Well, of course.
But for me, this is business. This is business because you guys affect my business, and I think that you can positively affect the city in general. So someone needs to vocalize that.
Well, help me make change.
And that's what I'm doing. That's why we're here doing it.
I remember 2 years ago, if I'm correct, if I'm not correct, I was doing a dinner with Zach the baker.
Right.
And I remember, and I said, he said, who's he inviting for the dinner?
Yeah, this
and
is
he
the
said,
one.
Michael Beltran. And I said, he's never going to do it.
He conned me into it, but yeah.
Well, and then a few weeks after that, there was an issue about the product. You didn't want to use Southern wines.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Southern is the exclusive provider of wine and spirits. They're donating the product. Be gracious, shut up, and use the fucking wine for one course. What point were you making that you didn't want to support the 800-pound gorilla?
Yes, that's one. And two, the first day. So I sat at a table with other great chefs that I have a lot of respect for. And the one thing that we all said was we have complete creative control.
Absolutely.
No one could change that. So I sit here, I come up with a dish. Right. My som then tries the dish.
Right.
Then he then tries a wine and says, this is the wine that's perfect for this dish.
Right.
That is creative control.
The only wine in the world?
That's what he wanted. But that's complete creative control.
Culinary control.
I mean, it
was not specified. You're right. But Zach knew, he's done the festival as long as you have, which I'll get to in a second. But Zach knew that Southern Wine and Spirits is the exclusive provider of wine and spirits. Listen,
when I sat at that table with people, they're like, well, we want to use, and I got to be very fucking honest. I do not drink wine. Right. I drink cocktails, right? I do not drink wine, but I understand the value of wine with food. We sat at that table and said, if we want to use a boutique winery and we want to use X, Y, and Z, that's what we got to use and that's what we want. And my whole thing was saying to everyone, it's cool. I think that the idea behind this event is cool, but also this is who we want to be. This is what we want to do. And if no one's going to tell you guys no, then you guys are going to keep on just doing what you guys want to do.
But doing what? Southern is the provider.
I understand that, but don't tell me I have complete creative control and then I can't be creative.
If I think there's I think it's not so much about, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's not necessarily about the wine or about the 800-pound gorilla. There's, from conversations that we've had in the past, there's a sense of like, you know, you don't want to go down this road because, and it's not not about this specific institution or whatever, but you know, you give one finger and next thing you know, they want the whole hand. Yeah. So if you budge on the wine, where are they going to budge next? These were the terms that I was given, and so
I would agree that he's right.
Yeah, the fact that I work for Southern Wine, that's how I get my paycheck.
Sure.
Listen, we turn down millions of dollars a year in sponsorship from brands that we don't sell because that's the agreement, that it's exclusive to Southern Wine and Spirits. Why else would they support the festival, put up the money to help get us launched, pay a Lee Schrager to produce the festival, and then all of a sudden start promoting wines that we don't sell?
I think that just for the benefit of the person listening, because I'm sort of the avatar of that, right? Like I wasn't there for all of this, and it sounds to me like like there was some kind of a communications breakdown, right? For sure, there was a communications breakdown when someone was told that they would have complete creative control, and I do agree with Mike. If you're told you have complete creative control, you know. The sponsorship of the thing notwithstanding, you unless you're given that caveat, you aren't necessarily. However,
true.
My question would be, was the complete creative control thing communicated through one of the chefs who was involved?
Zach was told he had complete creative control,
right.
And it probably was my bad, meaning I'm thinking creative control, the food, because we're dealing with chefs. I'm assuming that everyone knows it's Southern Wine and Lee Schrager is his role at Southern Wine. It wasn't the fact that you wanted to use someone else's wine. I could give a flying fuck. You know, I drink wine that we don't sell. I felt that you were making above any, you were doing it for one reason, to make a point. And that's it. Because guess what? Your Som could certainly have found a wine. If he had looked hard, or he could have called anybody who, you know, your salesperson said, hey, I like this Sancerre, but we can't use it. What do you have that's close to it? We probably would have sent 25 bottles of wine, something, and donated that wine for that course. It was you, Michael Beltran, making a point, and that's what bothered me.
Well, but I did make a point.
You did.
I did. I made my point. Yeah. We're standing here talking about my point. My point was, I was given a directive, and we spoke openly about it.
It was a misunderstanding because Zach said we want creative control, and I said yes. My bad that I didn't say, but of course you have to use Southern, you know, Wine and Spirit. I'm thinking you creative control with the courses and things like that. My misunderstanding, you know, I never had that conversation with Zach. I just said, you know, fuck Michael, he doesn't have to do the festival, and that was it. And guess what? We survived, and it was, I'm sure, a great dinner, and that was it. But
we had also a great dinner that night.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We did.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We did.
Yeah. But, you know, you have 11 restaurants and bars in town. Mm-hmm. I think you should be supporting the festival. That's me. I think that you should be giving back to the community. And yes, I'm sure you do.
Nick is chiming in again. This is a lot. This is the most he's talked in like 3 episodes.
Well, no, because I understand that you think that Mike should be supporting the festival. So I wonder, this is sort of a same question framed a little differently for each of you.
Sure.
So for Mike, do you think that there's something about the kind of company that Ariat Hospitality is, or the kind of restaurant Ariat is, right? Not about you specifically, but the class or the category you're in, that makes it, or whether it could also be geographical, it could be whatever. It's something about a category you're
Geography
in
is big.
that makes the festival make less sense for you. And then the question for Lee would be, number one, do you think that there is such a category, right? Are there categories of restaurant that, the festival is just not for you if you're this kind of restaurant or if you're in this sort of, whatever it might be? And is that a problem? Because and I could understand the argument. I could totally understand. Not all festivals or all events or all programming needs to be all things to all people. Maybe it's okay that it doesn't work for some category of restaurant that Ariad is in.
Right. Yes, I don't think a vegan restaurant should be participating in our festival, but I think
100% on board with this.
But I think a Michael Beltran should.
Well, here's my point. I think Nick made it's a valid question and kind of point all in and of itself, which is, what do I think the festival can do, right? I think for the 90 days, 120 days leading up to that festival, I see a lot of tickers and things about the festival and stuff about the festival. And all I ever see is the faces I see all the time, right? Which are the faces on television, the big names.
The people who are the Food Network who is paying for the festival.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you also have, and I hate to say it, but almost a responsibility to the community around you to not just I get it that they're paying for it, right? But they're paying for the placement. You guys have to put us up there too. And I'm not saying us as in me, right? Because I don't want my face on anything. I'm not a big put me on a billboard guy. But I want to see a billboard with Alex and Lucci doing a dinner with Vetri. I want to see a dinner of Pablo Zitzman doing a dinner with somebody, or Giorgio doing a dinner with somebody, or so many other people like that. And I would tell you that 9 times out of 10, because I've read several articles talking about, and a lot of literature about festivals in general, right? And I think the one resounding thing I got from all that is from chefs, forget about the financial portion. I am ultra obsessed with the finances only because I've seen the very bottom of the barrel of a bank account. So that is something that I focus on a ton. The resounding thing I felt in all of that is that the chefs just want to feel appreciated. Yeah. That's pretty much it. Forget about finances. Put finances aside. These cats, all of them, doesn't matter. Women, men, young chefs, old chefs, legends, new up-and-comers, mom and pops. All they want is appreciation. And how that really gets executed, I don't know. I'm not a marketing guy. But how that gets executed and really put in the living room of somebody in, it could be Kendall or it could be Georgia. Right. It doesn't really matter. You guys have that ability to do that. You guys have the ability to really touch people, from a marketing and branding standpoint that we will never have. Because we don't have that power. We don't have a Southern. We aren't Southern. Right. So it's I think that's what people are looking for. And I can tell you that 9 times out of 10, people don't tell you this stuff because they like going to the events and they like doing the thing and listen, I again, 11 years I did it and it's a good time. But at the same time, I could not continue to stomach being part of this. I hate being a number and I hate being a part of the wheel because I think in reality, Miami itself is the wheel. We have created the wheels for the car that you guys drive, which is great. And I think it's amazing. You guys built a great car, right? 22 years deep, you're in there. But the wheels are the people that are here. There's people that also love you guys. I have this conversation too. I would say it's probably a 70-30 split, right? 70% of people be fuck the festival. 30% were I love them. But I would tell you.
You think there are more people who hate us than like us?
For sure. In the community? For sure, man. Yeah.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm not gonna fucking lie to you. I don't I don't care. I have nothing to win by lying.
Right. Of course not.
But I would say that there's more nights with cocktails with people and being well, they didn't do this for me, and I wish they would have done that, and then they just overlooked me and blah. And it always comes down to that simple fact: none of them talk about money except for me. I am the only one that talks about the $500 always, right? They always talk about someone I use Vetri because he's a legend, right? I want to do a dinner with Vetri and I want to do a dinner with this guy. And a lot of these people don't have the power or the reach to be able to provide that for themselves. Right. But you guys know the community and should know the community better than anyone coming from anywhere else. Right. So you guys have the connections to make those things happen. And I think that that's where you guys fall short, right? Listen, I have a lot of love for like Bobby Flay and Guy Fieri. I think that they've both done like really amazing things for the food and beverage community as a whole, definitely not just in Miami, just like overall. The other ones, not so much. But like, you know, those two in particular, I think that obviously you guys prop them up. They're definitely a huge draw and whatever. But I think it's also like if we're going to continue using our backyard, right, as part of the draw, you have to use kind of like the things that are in the backyard as part of the draw too. Yes, Nick.
I'll just note, for the sake of analogy, I think that this is something that we seek to do here with Pancom Podcast, right? In the sense that we've never sought out to be a local podcast. We're a podcast that just happens to be here. And so Jean-Georges Van Gerichten gets the same distribution, the same kind of time, the same medium, the same 3 cameras and our same shitty light as... I'll leave it to Mike to say who we should call the bottom of our barrel. But we put them on the same plane, right? And so in that way, I think what I hear Mike saying is, and again, it's a question of preference. I'm not speaking to whether it's right or wrong. Mike and I do not, by the way, feel the same way about it. So I'm not here to be his like sidekick. Right. We don't feel the same way about the festival. I don't get incensed about it the way that he does.
Incensed is a strong word. Come on.
Well, you say everything is visceral. It's like your favorite word. So
it is my favorite word.
But it sounds, what I'm hearing from him, and I'm not saying that I agree or disagree, is that there are people who feel like there's a festival that happens here where they get out-of-towners table scraps, effectively. From a visibility standpoint.
Yeah. Nick is better with words today than I am.
I'll tell you, it's really disappointing for me. If you told me that it was 70% who liked us or liked me or the festival and 30% who didn't, I'd say I don't disagree. When you're saying it's 70%.
Well, again, listen, my group isn't everyone though, right? Like the people that I don't hang out with everybody, so you can't. Like, let's not use the whole city as like a sample size. Right?
You're right.
Let's just hang out with like the group of people that I hang out with.
Right.
The people who could put up with this on a regular basis.
Right, which is not a lot. Right. So maybe you guys are doing a lot better than I think.
Listen, you know what? I have no idea who your friends are, but I bet you.
Me neither.
Or that you hang out with, but I bet you I could name them. I bet you it wouldn't even be hard for me to think twice. I'm seeing 3 people come to mind right away. But again, I disagree. If something was bothering me so much, or it's not bothering you so much, but if I had a restaurant and I was in Coconut Grove, which is, I think, probably one of the hottest dining destinations of the city, I'd be saying to me what the owner of the Mayfair Hotel that's going to open up soon is saying to me, how can we make Coconut Grove a destination for that weekend?
Yeah, and I would agree with that.
There are, I don't want to say whining and dining, but they're all over me to have meetings. How do we make the Mayfair Hotel the hub of Coconut Grove that weekend and, really profile what's going on in here? We don't have a big team. I do.
I know some people on your team.
I do 50 different things. I handle communications. I handle CSR. I handle the corporate website. I handle the intranet for the company. If I don't get feedback, I don't know. If you would have ever said to me, or you or your friend Naveen or whoever it may be would have ever said to me,
talking about Niven?
Is it Niven?
Me and Niven know each other, but we're not we're not. I know you and Niven. Yeah. Listen, I think that the beef that you and Niven have is a lot different than the disagreements that you and I have.
Here's a great story about Niven. We had a meeting, a face-to-face meeting. It was probably a year ago today.
Sure.
And I went to this meeting that Larry set up because I think Larry represented him at the time.
Yeah.
And I went to this meeting with Niven. He's questioning me. I said, well, what's bothering you? Same way I'm talking, more serious,
Sure.
And he said, well, I resent that you spend $1 million on tents. And I said, what are you talking about?
That's a strong move.
He pulled out his iPhone and had our budget, which you could pull up from the city because we're a state university. Mm-hmm. And he said, this is what's bothering me. I don't know that it was tents or garbage pickup, whatever it was, but a crazy number. And he said, how can you justify spending that much money when you're a charity? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, there are 4,000 different things that fall under that one thing, but that's how we classify it, as garbage or as tents or something like that.
Sure.
And I went through that budget with him line by line. that he had. I don't know the budget. I don't even know how to pull it up on FIU, website. I've never been to FIU website. The fact that he went and pulled it up was mesmerizing to me. And he had questions, and I'm
pretty shocked by that.
And I answered every question. And we left the meeting, we shook hands, and I didn't say, "Are you going to do the festival?" I didn't say that, nor would I say it to you. We invited him to the festival, and he turned it down. And I wrote him an email saying, "Hey, I thought we cleared up any difference," and never heard from him again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the financial aspect of what you guys do, obviously I've done some decent study on it. That's not really my concern.
So you've done a decent study on our finances?
Well, I mean, it's documented, right?
Right.
Yeah, the money that's donated to the school, the money that's left over from that, that's all documented. Right. It's not like I dug deep. I'm not like the Secret Service looking into shit.
I don't even do that.
That's not really what I'm talking about. I mean, any kind of business should make money. Yeah. Right. That's not my concern. Right. My thing is that if we're going to continue to use South Florida as this thing, and I support South Florida making money in any which way, is how do we better highlight South Florida in the process? Because I do not think that we do that. And that's always been my gripe since day one. Now, if you want to talk about stipends and shit like that, which is much more fundamentally I don't quite think you guys understand restaurant economics enough to understand why those numbers don't make sense. That's a different story.
But we do understand. We know that it's bullshit, but we gave nothing for 18 years. And, so you can't say that we don't understand. We listened. We listened. Did we give you $2,500 per event? No, but we did the best that we thought that we could do and still justify why we're in business to raise money for the hospitality school.
Sure.
You certainly could have said, I would respect you a lot more if you'd said, Lee, I would really love to do this festival, but I just can't afford it. I can't afford it with the $700 stipend, rather than saying, I'm not doing it because I can't serve the shitty wine that my son picked out.
Yeah, no, but I think at that point, I'll tell you, the wine wasn't shitty. Well, I'll tell you that much. I mean, I'll tell you this much, is for me to go out of my way, right, to then tell you that I think that you need to do a better job at your job is not my job. You know what I'm saying?
I think
now for me to disagree and just say no, I'd much rather do my own event. And you want to talk about how to draw traffic to the Grove, and the Mayfair is going to look to you because they want to use your tentacles,
of course,
because they're dropping lots of money into what's happening there. But for me, I am a mom and pop place.
Right.
I am a small place. Question. I am a small provider. And I'm going to do what I think is best for us.
Right.
I can't sit there and fix your model for you either. It takes a lot of time to sit back and say, okay, so how do I fix this very defunct system that's been there for a while? And essentially I still have a job to do also.
It's not your job to fix it.
Right.
It's your job and your responsibility to tell somebody, to relay a message. Hey, this is what needs to be done. The same way you picked up the phone to call me and told me what we should be doing to support the industry during COVID is what you should be doing as a restaurateur.
Very different circumstance, though. It's a difference. I'm not drowning now. Then I was drowning.
Right.
And it wasn't just me drowning.
Right.
It was a whole industry drowning.
You called me.
Yeah.
We stepped up. We delivered.
Yeah.
Okay. If you called me and told me what was bothering you, we probably could have fixed this issue, Michael, 7 years ago, 11 years ago when you first started.
No, but I mean, also you have to, again, I think you're quantifying it to again, you're 22 years deep.
Right.
I'm 6.5. Right. So it's it's taken a lot of time to get to where I stand right now.
Right, of course.
And for me to be able to sit here with you and say, look, I appreciate what you guys have done. I just don't agree with it. It doesn't happen overnight, right, Nick?
No. Go ahead. But
I don't agree with lots of things, but guess what? I don't. When I don't agree with something, plenty of things I don't agree with. I'm the first to say, I'm not here to be your friend. I don't need to be a drinking buddy. But if something was bothering, well, that's not true. I never came to you, but I did go to Larry. And
So
I
you
said,
didn't- you didn't come to
I
me
didn't come
either.
to you. I'm as guilty as you are.
I mean, you went to listen. I love Larry.
Yeah.
But Larry's still, again, it's a double-edged sword for him, right? Like he's
Telling me the truth?
he's your publicist. He's my publicist
right.
too. I mean, you're a great account. We've been a great account for only 4 years, not 22.
If he cared about the festival, he would relay what's bothering chefs like Michael
Oh
Beltran.
man, but I mean, come on. Like you have to look at it like people that are that dug deep, like I am.
You know how many times Michael said, Larry said, I really have no idea what Michael's problem is.
Well, maybe I haven't really sat here to this extent and had this conversation with Larry.
I want to note, first of all, that we're going to cut here so that I can insert from our Larry Carino episode his impersonation of Mike Beltran, which was pretty solid.
He's got a couple of those.
Yeah.
I said, but Mike, Nick and I have been talking, and this is true, Nick. You and I have been talking about having coffee and having a cigar, right? I said, but Nick, he goes, then have a cigar with Nick. Let's not make it a whole group thing. And I went, all right, okay. But this is before I met you. And I was like, I could have a cigar and a coffee with Nick. How many times do you keep going back to Taco Bell? You're like, it's been terrible the last 3 times I've had it, but I keep going back.
And I'll throw a question out there. It sounds to me, again, as a sort of outsider, because I'm really only like restaurant adjacent here, like there's something like mission creep happening with the festival, in the sense that it seems like neither of you is disagreeing that the festival is about both championing local food and raising money. And those two, what I don't quite hear, and what as an outsider seems to me like, okay, this maybe is the source of some of the conflict, not between the two of you, but just of the issues at play, is that at some point, what the conflicting things are, okay, we need for the festival to be in service of the restaurants that we're trying to promote, but at the same time, we're asking those restaurants to take a hit because this whole thing is about raising money for a scholarship fund. Because you can't have it both ways, right? It can't be about profit for the people who are raising the money for a charitable endeavor. And so I wonder whether I wonder how you see that, right? I won't say that it is one thing or the other, but I wonder whether there's some amount of one of those missions kind of creeping into the other, such that it makes both of those things impossible to do optimally. Because I think if everybody understood it as, okay, the thing that I'm being asked to do is to raise money, because you guys have done things for charity where you take a hit, where that's kind of the point. But you're not alone in, at least in my experience, in discussing the festival. Like you could talk for hours about the festival without ever talking about raising scholarship money. And I think that that's a super common thing. I think it's very low on the list of how consumers and restaurant industry people think about the festival.
Well, the consumer, you said it. The consumer that goes to the festival goes for fun and fun. Right. So I think that's also a double-edged sword for you guys, right? Because like I'll say the earlier parts of my career, I've only done the grand tasting tent like 3 times. It's a tough audience. It's a tough audience,
Thankless,
right?
Yeah.
And exactly, it's thankless, and you have people that are just it's a day at work that's thankless, you know. And you have that, right? And then on the other hand, you have stuff like the grand tasting, and you have stuff like Burger Bash, and I mean, you guys have. We did the
best of the best. Yeah.
I think the last event that we actually did. It was an event on the beach, and it was a Bacardi event.
The carnival event. Yeah.
Something quite like that. And I mean, it's just like, and it's so many people. So there's levels of events, right? But they're all pretty thankless. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I will tell you again, and I go back all the time. The person that talks about finances the most, probably Neven, would probably be one. Right. Like I've never quite had that conversation with him, and me. Yeah. You know, like the number doesn't equate, like the risk doesn't equate the reward quite there for me, you know? But it's the other part is like, are the people that are doing the event feel appreciated to do the event, right? And I know it sounds so stupid. And I think that in all the stuff that I read throughout this whole thing, I'm just like, wow, like, I don't really give a fuck about you telling me, like, you did a good job.
Right.
I don't care. You know, for me, it's always like, I need to make sure that we're okay.
Right.
That's always the number one concern for me. But so many other people, like, and then I thought about it more, and I thought about, like, early on in my career when I was doing this, I did an event with the local, 10 years ago, right? And we were doing these little, like, Parker House rolls stuff with, like, smoked brisket, and then it was like chow chow tossed with kale, and I spent, you know, like 3 hours chiffonading kale for this, and then I had a whole bus tub of kale just fall into the sand and just disintegrate into sand. And I remember thinking to myself, like, fuck me. What do I do now? And none of the people at this event could give 3 fucks about the kale. They didn't care that there wasn't kale in the fucking sandwich. They didn't care about anything that had to do with anything because they were all incredibly pretty banged up, and they were just having fun on top of fun. And I would say to you, also, financial aspects aside, those are things that need to be figured out too. Because, like, you can't control how much people are drinking, and at those events, they drink a fuck ton, you know? And
everyone feels like they have to drink what they paid.
Which I get.
Yeah, but the grand tasting is different today than it was when you did it last time. We've made a lot of improvements to it. Listen, someone like you probably shouldn't be at the grand tasting, but it's a much different experience.
But I care about the people that are also at the grand tasting.
Yeah. Well, I understand that.
You know?
You know, if I was a restaurateur today, I know there's value in participating in the festival because I hear it all the time. I hear from so many restaurants or from people who will email me and say, you know, I tried something at the grand tasting, or I tried somebody that I had this burger and I can't remember, or I was at Best of the Best and it was right next to the Kistler wine station. You know, can I remind them what the name of the restaurant was? I hear that. I know that people. I know that Chris Wessel, when he had Red Light Grill.
Yeah, Red Light.
I know that when Frank Bruni was writing for the New York Times, that's where I took him the night before the festival, and Chris got this huge write-up in the New York Times. Listen, I know the value of it. I know that when the entire Today Show comes down and talks about Miami being a culinary destination, that it's good for the city. I know that when David Whitaker, who heads up the GMCVB, the Greater Miami Chamber, for the audience,
they know
right?
me.
I know that when David says this is the most important event for us, even more so than Art Basel, I know that it's doing some good. I wish that a Michael Beltran or a Niven Patel would think differently, but I'm never going to change how people think. All I can do is do what I want, is do what I think is the best thing.
Sure.
I wish that we had enough billboards to put up a Michael and a Mishi and and Giorgio and all those people. I wish that we controlled that marketing that happens to belong to the network who pays for it and contractually. The year that David Grutman wanted his billboard, his face on one of those banners. I mean, imagine who would want a face on a banner.
Dave Grutman would.
I'm like, he said, if I'm going to do this for you, I'm like, really? Okay. What it took for me with Discovery to get them to allow a non-network talent was crazy. But yes, I mean, we could take out ads promoting, I guess, listen, but you take out something promoting Michael, then what happens with Giorgio, and then what happens with, Norman or Al or whoever they are, all the different chefs in the city. We're never, ever going to make everyone happy.
You're never going to make everyone happy, but you can make strides to have a better relationship. And I think that you can. Well,
and I think that somebody like you has to help. And if you cared enough about the industry and the city.
Well, there's definitely, there's very little doubt that I care very much about the industry. And you can, that's pretty well documented, so I'm not going to go, super deep into it, but, I live and breathe and do nothing else but for this community, right? So I don't really need to justify that, but what I do want in my life, and listen, I'm still pretty young, so I hope to be doing this for a very long time. What I hope is to not have such a rough relationship with other people that I feel have an impact in the community, which is...
We don't have a rough relationship. We have no relationship. There's a difference.
Well, I mean, and I also I don't quite totally think we don't have a relationship, but the relationship we do have is not quite like, great.
I think it's nothing.
Well, I mean, I would say that's not true, right? Because every time that we've communicated, it's always been a rough communication. And for me, I've always told you, this is not personal. This is business.
Right. But I think it is personal.
And that's okay.
Right.
And for me, like the personal aspect of like my business is very important to me because like, I think about it as I have a lot of people to answer to.
Right.
Like I am employed by my employees.
Right.
So I have to make the best decision for them.
Of course.
And that's okay. It's a shitty decision. A lot of those people would probably want to be involved or want to do things, want to get out of the office for a day and do a thing. And it's shitty when I tell them that we're not going to do a thing.
No, I'm sure.
But it's also what I believe in that I think is right because somebody has to make a point. Somebody has to.
There are different ways to make a point, Michael.
And I mean,
there are different ways to make a point.
I'm more a little shock and awe than other people.
Well, and that that's just youth.
I guess
there are different ways to make a point. There are lots of ways to make a point. There are lots of ways to change things. Mm-hmm. And you and I disagree. When I want to change things, and there are plenty of things that I've wanted to change. Going back to the early days of fundraising for HIV, you speak up, you talk, you sit, you have meetings, you communicate.
Sure. I
don't happen to appreciate the way you make a point, but again, I don't think I'm going to change it. I don't think Michael Beltran's going to change my life. Would I like you to do the festival? Absolutely.
Cool.
I think that's really,
I think that me personally, personal feelings aside or whatever it may be, I think that there's avenues of change that can be made. It's just open communication on both sides. And you may not see it this way, and maybe other people don't see it this way either, but don't put blinders on the fact that a lot of the community here is being kind of just forgotten about, because they are, in the effort of the festival, they are being forgotten about. And I get it. It's big. There's a lot of shit happening. You don't have to explain that part to me. I get it. Right. I not only do I understand, I don't understand your job, but I understand that there's a lot of shit that's involved with it. But I understand, for me personally, there's a lot of shit I got to do too, So for me to say, okay, I want to really help change this, it takes a lot out of the both of us. It's not just you saying you've done something a certain way for 22 years and now it's a totally different thing, or at least being open to change. For me, it's also saying okay, I'm going to take this upon myself and other people like me to want to be part of that change too. My whole thing is, I feel and have always felt, financial part aside, because that's a different facet, there needs to be a different level of appreciation. There doesn't need to be one event that's called locals only, right? That essentially when I say I'm not going to do what you guys want me to do, you have an event called locals only? You did. And that's the one that I was supposed to do.
Really?
Yeah.
It was called locals only?
Something along those lines, yeah.
Yeah.
And for me not to do it and then be looked at as well, he's just being difficult. Yeah, I mean, that was the dinner. But that was the dinner.
Yeah.
For me to essentially say because I'm going to prove a fucking point here. And then looked at, and then also I hear a lot of things, right? Yeah. And it's well, that's just Mike being Mike. Yeah. No, that's Mike saying, fuck it. I don't really care that much to do it and just continue to be treated a certain way. Instead of saying, you know what, we'll work with you guys. Right. We're open to working with you guys. Let's have a conversation, as opposed to just saying, you're being an asshole. Right. Well, I mean,
I think you've been an asshole, but I think listen, it doesn't mean that I don't respect you.
Equally so.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that I don't respect you. But if people don't take time to make change and they're not part of change, we wouldn't have civil rights. We wouldn't have gay rights. There were so many things. People need to speak up.
But someone had to prove a point first.
If you say so.
You're going down a dangerous road here comparing Michael Beltran to a civil rights leader.
That's absolutely true.
He's not exactly Harvey Milk either.
No,
I get
no.
it. Yeah,
I am none of that, and I would never champion any of that stuff.
Listen, Michael, I think bottom line is, if I didn't respect you, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Well, I also find it intriguing that when Nick sent you an email to invite you on here, you didn't think that I wanted you to be here.
Well, and let me be clear. If you want us to cut that out, we can, because I know that wasn't necessarily on the record email exchange.
What? No.
Okay.
No, yeah. What I said is, listen, I get lots of emails from producers, from direct whatever, and sometimes, they're just doing their job. They have to fill 54 slots a year, and they don't care if it's me or if it's Cindy Lou Cookies. What I said is, I just want to make sure that Michael is aware, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Yeah,
that Michael is aware.
I want to make sure I hadn't gone rogue.
Yeah. That's what I was, I certainly didn't want to, get here and find out, that I,
it was my idea.
Well, I didn't know that.
This goes to
whose detriment? Like, Larry was incredibly worried about this.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Worried? We're not saving lives. I mean,
No, but I mean, Larry also knows that I'm an asshole too.
Yeah.
No, listen, everyone knows you're an asshole.
Not everyone.
Most people.
Not everyone, no.
So this is a good segue to a thing that just, and I'm really only chiming in hopes to move the thing in some direction or another.
You can move someplace else.
Yeah. A
direction.
Yeah.
So, Mike, this past festival, you were there. Ariete didn't participate with its own thing, but you were there with Beam, which brings
correct.
And so the thing
You
that
were? I didn't know that.
I was.
Yeah.
What were you doing?
We did a Beam, like the Beam tent at Swine.
Really? Yeah.
And so
they contracted you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Just so you know, had I known that, I would have called Beam in 1 second and killed that.
And well, actually, somebody did call
and
and tried to kill that. And
Yeah.
Beam
And you know what? I probably wouldn't have done that.
Beam stood up and said, "This is the person that we want."
Yeah.
So, and I respect Beam a lot for that.
Oh, so Michael Beltran got paid.
Yep.
So he showed up.
Correct.
Okay.
So the question to me is
not Mike Beltran. Ariete Restaurant got paid.
So you were there. I didn't even know you participated.
Yep.
Yeah. And I
But
would,
again,
just to be clear, I probably would not have called Beam.
But that's another good point, right? Because you're going into do you have to finish this?
Well, yeah. The only thought, right? It's not so much of a question. It's like half question, half thought. Is I wonder whether just knowing that can take the conversation in the direction of like what can be done to find what you might call like creative solutions, right? Because the money is obviously not going to be pulled from these FIU kids. And the money is not going to, Southern isn't going to start, like you said, because there are doors you can't close. Mm-hmm. But maybe there are ways to take something, and I'm sure it's not the first time something like that's happened. I'm sure it happened many other times, many other years. But to sort of build on that as some kind of a model, right? To at least, that's the vague semi-question. Is just like, what can be, like, where might the conversation about creative solutions to this problem go? And of course, like you said earlier, not everybody can have a billboard. Not everybody can have, a cooking demo at prime time on the Food Network, whatever it might be. But, in the same way that the festival doesn't have to be for everybody or benefit every last single person, maybe some of these creative solutions, to benefit one more person, to make one more person, to make the festival an asset to that person, and also that person an asset to this fundraising effort.
Well, listen, the truth is, if we didn't have a Michael Beltran or Naveen Patel, I wouldn't, who disagreed or didn't want to participate in the festival, I'd have nothing to talk about a lot of times.
Listen, there's definitely a large group of people that like the festival. I think to Nick's point, so I thought, because when they first called me, I told them no.
Yeah.
Right. And I was
Beam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Beam. Yeah. We've done several events before, and they've done events with us, and they've been a great partner. I told them no. And then they told me the event, and they told me the why and the reason and the budget for it and everything else. And I said, okay, well, that's cool. All that kind of like checks out or whatever. But it's really like geographically, which is what I think Nick mentioned or you mentioned before, that event makes the most sense for a restaurant like mine. Because that's like not just in our backyard, that is our backyard.
Right.
So the opportunity to cover everything that needs to be covered, staff it the way it's supposed to be staffed, do food that we're happy with, feel like we're getting appreciated in response, and work with some really great people. All that kind of checked out. And I'm not saying like the Beam people are better than the SOBE people. I'm just saying
I understand.
those are people that we've worked with before, and
Right.
they're great to work with, and so on and so forth. That event made a lot of sense because it's literally 5 blocks away.
Right. Yeah.
So stuff like that makes a big difference.
Well, a dinner for 80 people with 4 local chefs, you cooking 1 course, makes a lot of sense. I can understand why you wouldn't want to be at a Burger Bash.
Sure.
Maybe even Best of the Best, although I think it's nice. I like the name. I'd want to.
We did it 3 times.
Yeah. I'd want to be there if I had a restaurant or 11, all the restaurants you're having. But, to do a dinner with 4 of your friends that you're friendly with,
Sure.
I think is a fun thing. And I think it's a nice opportunity. I don't think it's too taxing. Yes, of course, you're not being reimbursed for your staffing, you and the 2 chefs who are coming, or 3 chefs to support you. But I think that's a way somebody like you can participate. Listen, don't think that I don't get calls every month from brands, a BMW, a collection, a credit card company, a bank, Bank of America, an airline looking to say to me, hey, we are working on something. Who do you recommend locally? Mm-hmm. I don't penalize Michael Beltran for not doing it, but I think of people who we work with to do it.
Sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's
it goes every way. I mean, I can't tell you the opportunities here. I mean, if you I'm trying to think. Of course, now I can't think of one example, but right. I can't think of one thing. But there are plenty of things that people come to us, and when I can do something nice for people who support us, I want to do it. I would never hurt someone who doesn't support us,
right?
But I certainly wouldn't go out of my way to recommend something. If somebody said to me, if American Airlines said, "Hey, we want to do something with 5 chefs, we're going to open another club, a pop-up during Art Basel," send us a list. More than likely, we'd probably not think of a Michael Beltran, not because he's not incredibly talented, but I would think of people who go out of their way to support what we do.
For sure.
Yeah.
That things like that don't bother me at all.
Well, they would bother me.
Yeah, but I think like the bigger question is, right. And like what I think, geography is huge, right? Yeah. So like, would you not be willing to put a piece of South Beach or SOBE or whatever? I know it's called SOBE, so it's kind of like counterintuitive, but like to do a slice of it in Little Havana, to do a slice of it in South Miami, a slice of it in Coconut Grove. But not like Swine and Wine. Swine and Wine is like an event that now has like cachet that people go to that is like already well known.
Right.
I don't quite think that you've quite ventured out other than that event.
Well, we're having conversations about Coke. Listen, truthfully, 3-4 years ago, there weren't enough good restaurants here in Coconut Grove.
I don't disagree with that.
It was Ariette. You know what? Guess what? It's Ariette now. It's probably Amal. It's Mr. C. It's a Porra de Mare. It's a new the new Mayfair Hotel. We're gonna do a whole thing. A whole taste of whatever we're calling it, coconut, whatever. We'll come up with a name. Same way that we're going to do a whole Overtown thing this year called The Soul of South Beach, with Marcus doing it. I mean, listen, I think this conversation should be...
What about Little Havana? I mean, you're talking about one of the oldest, most influential neighborhoods in the city.
I don't know it. And you know what? We didn't have a sushi event at South Beach for so many years. And people would say, well, why don't you have sushi events? I'm like, oh, wow, I never thought about it. I don't eat sushi. But we had a fried chicken event. We had a burger event. We had, I don't, things, but Little Havana, I wouldn't even know who to begin with. Doesn't mean I couldn't find out. My philosophy is in 3 emails today. You can get through to anyone. I'd love to do something with Little Havana. We work with, Versailles, the Valls family all the time. We're just texting with Nicole on the way over here. We include them in things. I wouldn't even know how to start, how to get a group of restaurateurs in that area together to do something. We work with Asuka. We work with, Versailles.
You have one of the best bars in the country there.
Which?
La Trova.
Oh, yeah, no.
Which is Michelle.
We do an event there every year.
Oh, I think that let's like separate the fact that it's like restaurateurs and restaurants, you're talking about like a cultural epicenter.
It's fabulous.
Right? Of like the city. And that's kind of
People want to see that. People coming to town.
Right.
You know, Anthony Bourdain, when he used to come here, you know, rest in peace, where do you think I used to take him when he came out here? We went to those dive restaurants and those great, you know, ended up at Versailles late at night. That's what they want to see.
Right.
But we'd love to do something there. I mean, listen, are you? I don't know. Are you? I think you know. I didn't even know that you're Latin. I'm sorry to tell you. I didn't even know that you're Latin.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. I grew up.
Listen.
In the neighborhood.
Then step up and help me plan something there.
Yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't. I don't even speak Spanish. I'm embarrassed to tell you. So it's very, very hard for me to plan something. Not that people on my team don't speak Spanish. Probably everyone does, but me. But it's very hard for me to go to the small mom and pop bodega or the small. You know, they don't understand it. I remember when Burger Beast took me to what's the famous Frita place?
Oh, Ray.
Right. Yeah. Right. I'll never forget when he took me there. And I met the owner and his daughter, I think, who runs it. This guy couldn't understand a burger bash and what it would mean and making 3,000 burgers and doing it for free. But guess what? Once he did it, he loved it.
Right.
So I'd love to do something. I mean, people always say, why don't we do a big Latin or Cuban themed party? And we've done them. We've done Latin themed parties, but never authentic like that. I wouldn't even know how to go about closing the street. I guess we'd talk to the Rotary.
Well, it happens.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, I know they do. You know,
they do Cayocho.
Yeah, they do Cayocho.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know, but God, I mean, that's like a no-brainer if I knew how to do it.
Right.
You know, we're having conversations with the city of Coral Gables now about doing a whole, you know, closing down Giralda next year. Just today, Vince Lago, the mayor, emailed me and said, when can we meet? Having conversations, as I said, with Mayfair about doing something in Coconut Grove. We're doing something at Overtown. We're doing things in Hollandale Beach. We did things in Key West. I mean, Key West. You know, we're all for it. But, you know, it's a small team. No excuse, but I kind of stick to what I know best. And it doesn't mean just because I'm not doing a sushi event that we shouldn't. I didn't think about it. Same way, you can be sure I'll make a note in my calendar right when I walk out of here saying F you, which means follow up in my calendar. It will say F you, you know, Little Havana.
It'll say F you, Michael Beltran.
Yeah, well, that it says.
It wouldn't be the first time.
I'd love that. I mean, I have to tell you, if I was a local Cuban kid who came from there, who had access, I mean, what have you done for that area? And you may have done plenty, but I don't know about anything.
Yeah, no.
What have you done to promote that area?
Oh, man, a lot, but I don't have anything there.
Well, nor do I.
Well, I mean, adjacent, but not there.
But you're there. I mean, but you're from that area.
Right.
Again, I don't even know that you're Cuban.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's because you don't pay attention enough.
Well, to what should I pay attention?
I will say that's kind of like the core of the Michael Beltran brand.
Right. I mean, the core of my entire brand.
Well, I guess if you look at Chugs, you know, I could figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to, I'd say, I don't know, 20% of the things that I say.
Yeah.
I mean, it is that I am incredibly proud of the city that I'm from.
I mean, you're wearing a Cuban flag on your logo right now.
I am. And
Mark?
Cuban flag on my logo right
now. Now that I see, yeah.
And I mean,
I didn't, Michael. I guess I could have figured it out. I guess Gingy Beltran is a friend of mine. She's Cuban. I guess I could have put that name.
I don't even know her. Maybe we're related.
Are you Beltran? You're Beltran.
Yeah, no, she's Beltran with an N.
You don't know Gingy?
No.
Yeah.
But I think that
her mother owns what's the big florist, the Cuban florist on Bird Road?
Oh. It's going to kill me because I feel like it's on the tip of my tongue.
He is 3 letters.
No, I don't know it.
Oh yeah, big florist. I mean, her mother's like a very social Cuban. Trias.
Oh.
Trias.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's her mother, Violetta Beltran.
I think that even kind of more so, that kind of like proves like, if you don't know that I'm Cuban, you know, and like that is part of like a lot of the dialogue that I say.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really know me at all.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't pretend to know you.
Right.
I wouldn't pretend to know you.
But as someone that has supported the festival for as long as I did,
right,
that's pretty shocking.
Well, there are a lot of people who support the festival who I don't know anything about.
I know, but I'm also the one person that continues to be a thorn in the side, right? Like, you know, I guess Neven would be the other one. For you not to take the time to say, like, maybe I should know why we don't get along, or we don't. Like, I know why we don't get along when it comes to the business aspect of it. From a personal side, I have no issues. But like, I think that even more says, you know, you don't really know the community all that well.
Oh, I'm not pretending. I never said that I'm the authority on the community. I never represented myself as being the be-all, know-all in the community. Listen, I guess if I had thought about it, and no offense, I don't think I ever thought about it. I don't think I sat home and said, Beltran, he must be Cuban. Let me see what Cuban friends I have maybe can help mend our relationship.
Yeah, but
Larry Carino?
No, Larry is definitely not Cuban.
Is he Italian? I don't even know what Larry is, and he's worked for me for 20 years. I'm sorry to tell you, I don't even know.
I'm pretty sure Larry's Italian.
You think? I think he must be Italian. Yeah. But I didn't think. Listen, I had zero. If I had actually thought about it, I guess I would have said, "Oh, he's probably Cuban."
But if
by the name, only by the name, nothing else. I mean, your temper doesn't necessarily make you Cuban. You can be Italian or Jewish.
Well,
yeah, you're Cubanly loud.
Yeah, I am Cubanly loud. Yeah. But I think that, you know.
Let's do a Cayocho event. You know, figure out what we can do or let's find out what the best restaurants. I don't know, or what would be a fun Cayocho thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I did a Cayocho thing with Beam.
Yeah, you did it with what was it?
I mean, they did the release of the Gloria Estefan mural.
I
did all the food
I did
for
see
it.
that. Yeah.
I think
I actually saw her posting about it a few weeks ago. Am I right? Same.
It's a beautiful mural.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I think there have been a few instances of you making references to a small team,
right?
And I'm sort of struck by, you know, how much of the conversation of, you know, well, if I had known this, I would have done this with the festival, and this probably should have come earlier in the conversation. Can you go into some whatever detail you think makes sense on how structurally the festival works? Because it makes sense to me, if it's that small a team, that no one person would be aware enough of all of these disparate things and all of these places in a city this size with a festival this huge, which maybe is its own problem, not of your making, but I can imagine the festival being a bigger thing than you can manage.
How many people do you think work on the festival full time in my office?
30.
30?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think 10. Just so you know. So I want to go through this. There's Ashley Shapiro, Teddy Rode, Allie, eight full-time people work in this festival full-time.
So how do things happen? So maybe that's just sort of running through titles, but like, let's suppose
I want to make sure. Wait, hold on. I'm counting.
Yeah.
Eight people work in this festival full-time.
So suppose somebody has an idea for whether it's a new event, right, or what does that process look like? Because I wouldn't have guessed that it was only 8 people. I don't know how many I would have guessed it was, but I would have guessed that at least at some point in the year, it's a whole lot of people full-time for part of the year.
There's 8 people, 8 full-time employees who work for the festival.
Right.
And that's probably 8 full-time people who work 12 months.
Right.
As we get, there are 40 event managers and 30 sponsorship directors. I don't even know most of their names. It's 8 people. I joke all the time. I used to know everything that happened in the city because this is 15 years ago, but it was small. Things weren't happening, so I knew everything. The way I find out about news is by reading Eater when I have time or listening to somebody in my office. I can't tell you how I used to be up to date with every restaurant. I knew about everything that was opening. I didn't even know a mall opened until Lizzie Newell, who works for me, said, "Oh, have I been to a mall yet?" I said, "I didn't even know it was open." So no, I'm not. I don't read press releases from publicists. I don't take free meals to go anywhere. So I'm not aware of it. So I think the process is people email me all the time. Someone will email me and say, "Hey, we're opening a new restaurant. We want to do a dinner there," or "We have a new burger on our menu. Can we participate in the burger bash?" That's how things happen. I get ideas all the time. We sit and talk to anybody. I mean, I talk to people all the time. There's one thing about me: I'll return every email and every phone call, good or bad, and that's how I learn about things. So if somebody came to me with an idea that I think can we can produce, that we can pull off, that will be successful, that we can get sponsors, and it can make money, I do it. And that's the truth. But no, it's a very small team. I mean, we have a full-time PR person who works with Larry, PR person. We have a associate director of the festival who runs it on a day-to-day person. We have a accountant. We have a talent manager. We have an exhibitor manager. We have a beverage person, an assistant. Yeah, 8 people. That's not counting me, but I don't work in the festival. I don't, my days are not consumed by the festival.
Right.
So, but no, it's, it'd be very hard. Yes, should I have known that Michael Beltran, common sense would have said to me, oh, it's a Cuban last, or a Latin last name.
Right.
Well, and I would even say, setting aside anything about the last name, even if you weren't Cuban, and this is not a knock on you. I'm not saying there's you should have known, but the whole story of Ariete is that it's a new Cuban American cuisine. I mean, everywhere that it's ever been covered, it's. I don't know that you've ever gotten press without Cuba and Cuban being in those words being somewhere near the top of the piece, which is fine. You don't have to read. I'm not. My point is not. That Lee Schrager. My point is not that Lee Schrager should have known this. Yeah. It's that it makes perfect sense to me that, given that this is not your full-time gig, and there are only 8 people, only a portion of whom would have knowing about Mike Beltran in their job description. The accountant doesn't need to know that Mike Beltran is Cuban.
Right.
So of that team, it seems to me that's its own problem, where that creates not. Insofar as it contributes to the perceived disconnect between the culinary community and the festival.
Listen, I don't know that the fact that I don't know that Michael Beltran is Cuban is the issue here. It is to Michael Beltran because he's a loud, proud Cuban.
No, I mean it's not really an issue to me either. Yeah. It's just right now we're just stating it as like what's just happened.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, I would never do an interview without Googling what I'm talking about. If I'm going and talking, I did not Google one thing about Michael Beltran.
You're continuing a long, proud tradition of not Googling things around here.
I don't. You know what? I didn't call Larry Carino today and say, hey, what should I know about Mel? I didn't. I wanted to come talk to you.
Yeah.
And that was it. It didn't matter to me if you were, whatever you were. I wanted to talk to you. And that was it.
Yeah, I mean,
you mentioned that you read this or you Googled that. I respect that. I should have done the same. I was not prepared.
For me, I'll never go into a conversation without at least being a little equipped.
Right. I felt that. Well, in my mind, I was equipped for what I wanted to talk about.
Well,
and to be clear, at least my point, and I think Mike's point, is not that like you should have. It's not that you should have known anything. It's it's just sort of an illustration of, which is fine. Not there's I'm sure there's plenty that you don't know about all kinds of people in Miami. But it's in the same way. I think it's more equivalent to not necessarily not knowing that Zach Stern is Jewish, but rather that he doesn't have kosher products on his menu, right? Like the food at Ariete is what's Cuban. That you are Cuban is, obviously the reason for that.
Right. Well, I mean, the story of the restaurant is what matters the most.
Right.
Like the way I.
But I know that you're on Chug's Diner, and we go there, and I never, how stupid of me. It's not even. I didn't even pay attention to it.
I am Chug.
Yeah.
That is me.
Yeah.
That is my name.
No, and we go there.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that. To find like a...
What does Chug mean?
That's my nickname.
Why?
The chocolate milk.
Oh. I don't want to, I need to wrap this up. But I want to talk about Michelin for a minute.
Okay.
Sure. I know you got an invitation.
I did.
You got it for Chugs.
I did.
Yeah. Did you get it for Ariete?
I got a personal invitation.
For Ariete?
It doesn't say for where. I was invited twice.
Okay, then you got it. I know you got it for Chugs. I didn't know what else you got it for.
Yeah, I have 2 RSVPs.
Yeah,
I don't know what the second.
Are you going?
Yeah, I'm going.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are your thoughts about who wasn't inviting? Who was a miss?
I don't really know the whole group of people who weren't invited.
Yeah.
I know of the people that I do know who was invited. I think that there's a lot of deserving people. If the list of people that I know of that didn't get invited, if some of them really didn't get invited, I'd be pretty shocked.
Yeah, like?
And I don't know, we may cut this out, but like...
Thank you, cut it out.
Well, I think we can start to wrap it up here.
Yeah, so this is where we do our wind down. Lee, I had mentioned earlier to you that we always do the recommendation thing. If you'd like, you can kick that off, letting people who are listening to and watching this know a thing that you'd recommend to them. Again, it can be absolutely anything. It can be a meal, a book, a movie, whatever. So if you wanna go first, you can. Otherwise, we can kick it off to Mike. And
I'm going to recommend something that I'm watching on TV right now on HBO Max called Hacks, Hacks.
Oh, that is good.
Which, if you have not, I don't watch TV a lot, although I've watched more in the last 2 years than I have in 60 years. But Hacks with Gene Smart is one of the greatest things I've seen on TV.
Cool.
Yep. Michael?
So Obi-Wan, very good. I'm shocked as a sci-fi person. That show, they only have 3 episodes out. It's shockingly good, and I don't know. I'm still pretty shocked that it's that good. It's really good. Acting is good. Storyline is good. Production is good. Like, everything is incredibly solid. So there's that. I would, and this is like, I guess, self-promotion, but the BK pie at Chug's, I'm going to recommend 2 Chug's things just because one is not new and the other one is super new. The BK pie at Chug's is been very important in a very tough time for me. And, it's our version of the BK pie that's at Burger King. Oh, funny story that the head chef of Burger King reached out to me, which he's a Belen guy.
Are you a Belen guy?
No, he's a Belen guy. I'm a Columbus guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I guess I tagged it as like BK pie, which I probably shouldn't have done. Because we call it like Valharana chocolate cream pie, because that's what it is. But it's essentially inspired by the BK pie.
I don't even know what it be. I've never been to a Burger King.
The BK pie, it's like literally just chocolate cream pie. It's like,
Really?
It used to be 99 cents. I'm sure now it's much more, but...
How much is it on your...
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. It's actually the most expensive percentage product in our entire company.
Really?
It costs us like 50% to produce, and it's like $11 a slice, but it's all 100% Valrhona chocolate.
Oh, my favorite.
And it's like Chef Devin's like favorite thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go tomorrow and get it.
It's really good. I mean, don't sleep on the passion fruit pie either, but
I don't
that
like
thing
passion
is...
fruit. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but this one's really good.
Yeah.
So,
Well, might I suggest that when you have people in the future, that you have some food so people can talk
sometimes
about
we have food.
it? Excuse me, I got a bottle of water.
Yeah. Well, we offered you drinks too. Everyone
drink.
always usually drinks. I'll tell you. I'll give it that much.
Yeah.
And then the second recommendation from Chugs is that we just rolled out a bacon, egg, and cheese croqueta, which is really, really delicious and interesting. And so far, people have very much enjoyed it. I enjoy it. So I recommend those things.
I'm going to recommend season 3 of a show that I became aware of when Danny Surfer was on the podcast and recommended the first season, The Boys, on Amazon. The Boys is... It's on Amazon. It's an Amazon Prime original series, and the premise of it is that it's like if in a world where superheroes exist, but they all work for different superhero companies. And this one follows Vought, which runs The Seven, which is like the premier superhero company. And so it's sort of like, what if superheroes were real? Well, of course they'd all be tremendous assholes and do unspeakable things. So that's kind of the premise of The Boys.
Super well done. I've only watched the first season, but it's super well
very
done.
gory. So if you're squeamish about that,
Yeah.
stay away. Especially the first 10 minutes or so of the season 3 are like I had to stop
like that,
first.
huh?
Yeah,
Wow.
gross.
Wow.
At least for me, anyway.
It's
But-
like if superhero movies weren't so fluffy.
All right.
Right.
I've never seen a superhero movie.
I've seen a lot. So that
You like sci-fi also, which I don't like.
super sci-fi nerd.
Yeah, so-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, in a shock to no one, I have 2 recommendations. This one also pertains to a past guest. So there is actually 2 past guests. So there is a new book that will be released later this month. It is called Give Me Liberty. It's by Pulitzer winner David E. Hoffman. It is about Oswaldo Paya, the father of past guest Rosa Maria Paya. She was a guest on this podcast. And on June 22nd at Books and Books, I think this episode will be out before then, Rosa Maria Paya and David E. Hoffman will be in a discussion moderated by another past guest, Vanessa Garcia, about this book. So June 22nd, I'm sure if you go to Books and Books' website and you're able to get to the Gables that day, should be a super interesting thing.
And I guess I could have figured out by the name of this podcast that there was a cue in here.
There's at least one. We know Nick is definitely one.
Oh, yeah, I'm the... But you're surrounded.
Yeah.
So finally, we'll wrap up with shameless plugs. Lee, go ahead and tell everybody all the things you want to plug and where they can find you and your stuff and the festival and all that.
Wow, what do I want to plug? I'm not plugging anything.
Just buy tickets to SOBE. That's all you got to say.
No, it's New York's before SOBE. If anything,
there you go.
I would plug New York. No, what am I plugging? Coconut Grove. I think the new hot dining scene. I have to say, you know, when I moved here 8 years ago, there was nowhere to eat, and now you can't figure out where to eat, which is great.
And to be clear, we just mean, I mean, you can plug anything you want, but we mean like an opportunity to plug your own stuff in the festival.
No, I have nothing to plug.
So for me, it's all the things.
Great.
Insert song.
All the things. I still got to recommend all my shit. I mean, we've done this 80 times already. It's whatever. Yeah, all the things. All the things.
No, but who knows? Maybe people are coming here for the first time. But you know what? Fuck you.
All the things. All the things. At this point, just all the things.
All the things. Yeah, we have a listener who made a song because he'd always answer just all the things very dismissively of this whole segment. And I am not going to be dismissive of the segment. You can give us all your money at patreon.com/DADEMAG. Follow Pan Con Podcast on all of the podcast things. We're Pan Con Podcast on all the social media things. And, of course, you can follow Petey the Dog on Instagram at Peaty, like a Petey Scotch, Petey the Dog on Instagram. He doesn't post very often, but when he does, high quality.
Yeah, high quality
That's
stuff.
it. Thanks a lot, Lee, for being
Good to be
here.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me, of course.
Next time we'll have food.
Oh my God, I'd be like, you know, it's like 9 o'clock. I gave up dinner for this. I figured, I said to friends, I said, I'll see you at 8 o'clock. I said, it can't go longer than an hour.
Oh man,
I mean, Jesus
you definitely haven't listened to this before. This is one of the shorter ones.